life, in some context or another, around how to architect a business from the ground up. And it's all contextual models. And I want to start with the definition of leadership, because I think we're all confused about what leadership means. We all want to be great leaders, and we all are great leaders. And I think if you're operating in a successful business, you have time to work on the business, like what we're doing here, versus working in the business. And that tells you something about what you're doing. So good leaders are doing something that works to lead other people to a brighter future, right? To make the world a better place through our products and services in some way. And so all the things I'm going to show you, another thing about them is that you're already doing them. I'm going to give you some frameworks that will help you do them better and amplify what you're doing through language. Does that make sense? All right, so leadership. What is leadership? It starts with this concept of empathy. And we all understand that. We all know this by default, that empathy is important. Okay? And the modern science around empathy, there's a couple different forms of it. Cognitive empathy or tactical empathy, sometimes referred to kind of confusingly if you read the literature as emotional intelligence or EQ. They say that EQ is more of a predictor of success than IQ, although Adam Grant debates that. He debates the efficacy of the instruments that are used to measure these things scientifically. But IQ is more of or EQ is more of a predictor of success than IQ. Have you guys heard that? Emotional intelligence? In plain English terms, what we're talking about here is our capacity for influencing the world, for influencing people around us. Our capacity for influence. Okay? And our capacity for influence starts with our self. And the science has shown us, Daniel Goleman's work, lots of others have been studying the brain with fMRI studies, and they show us that when we're using our reptilian brain, the amygdala, we've all heard this many times in many different places in the last 10 years, we're in fight, flight, freeze, facade mode. The 4 Fs, fight, flight, freeze, facade. This is our naturalistic response to stressors in our immediate purview, right? We either fight, we flee, fight, flight, we freeze, play dead, or facade, like a peacock. We make ourselves feel bigger. We're a butterfly with eyes on its wings, right? And when we're in that mode, if you study the work of Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, basically the guy that invented behavioral economics, and has done a bunch of experiments around why people make bad decisions that don't make sense economically, game theory. He also found that when people are thinking fast, they're in this fast mode, very similar to this amygdala response. This is when bad decisions get made. And just like our families teach us when we're very young, mom and dad teach us to slow down and use our words. Use your words. Sound familiar? We teach our kids this. We have to stop that amygdala response and switch our modes of thinking into a response mode where we're using the more evolved part of your brain, if you can guess, is the prefrontal lobe. It's like the front of your brain, and there's parts of it like the occipital frontal cortex, and other parts that they believe are responsible for empathy. It's not the amygdala. The amygdala is not responsible for empathy. The amygdala is responsible for fight, flight, freeze, facade. Reactions to immediate stressors right now. When we get angry, that's the part of our brain we're using. So good leaders understand this intuitively. They slow themselves down, and they think about their responses, and they engage their prefrontal cortex, the apparatus that we have biologically evolved towards for empathy. And we are all wired to care. There's a book written called Wired to Care. It's a great book that studies some of this stuff, that studies the science behind empathy. And this is really the fundamentals of leadership, like learning how to use our words to influence others. And as we go through life, our spheres of who we're able and capable of influencing, capacity for influence, expand until maybe we run a company or a division of a company like you guys. And we are responsible for influencing all of the people that work for us and our customers, whoever they might be in our organization. If we're in HR, our customers are the employees, right? and all the people that work for us on our teams. So this is who we're responsible. This is our sphere of influence in the business world. Make sense? Okay. This is sort of common sense. We understand this intuitively. Actually, all of my models you'll find are pretty common sense. I'm just giving you some visualizations to help you articulate it and maybe do it a little more powerfully. I think I'm going to do this today. Just go around the room
and John, for clarity, we're going to get the PowerPoint with all these.
Yeah, you already got it.
That'll have to check.
They're sent out at school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you should have, it should be like 5 minutes after 8, it's supposed to show up in your inbox from my admin. So all this, you guys are welcome to take notes. All of my material is 100% open source. Like I publish it, it's all out on the web. You can take it back to your teams, use it, leverage it. You can use my slide deck if you want to represent anything. You're welcome to. It's all open. All right? So the next thing about empathy, the next part of empathy is a completely different form of empathy. It's called affect or affective empathy. Affective empathy is about compassion. And in plain English, just for consistency, compassion, affective empathy, refers to our capacity, how able are we, and how much do we influence the caring in the world. Capacity for caring. The people that we lead. All right? And it works the same way. If you've read any of Brene Brown's books, which I've read them all, she's brilliant. She talks about vulnerability, trust, caring, affect, where it comes from. You'll find it starts with the self, much in the same way. And your family teaches you this. Care for yourself, care for your siblings. Don't beat up your little brother. Right? We learn to care for others, and our spheres of who we care for expand, just like influence, in both breadth and depth. They expand. Our capacity for caring until we reach a point in our lives where we're leading parts of a company, we care for the people that we lead, and we care for our customers, authentically. But we're all normal, and we have limits to how much we care. You guys all have bank accounts? You save money for your kids' college, but not your neighbor's kids' college, right? Or your vacation, but not your neighbor's vacation. Like, this is what we do. We're normal. So there's limits to both of these scales, because we're normal. All right? Common sense, I believe. Common sense. All right. Now, where this gets interesting, and by the way, I love, more than anything else, about Vistage. I love questions. Because one of the things I've learned, one of the things I've gotten out of Vistage myself as a speaker, is all of these models, there's aspects of every single thing that I'll show you that I've gotten language from experimenting in the Vistage community. Because the CEOs in this community are thinking about their business and asking hard questions because they want to take it back and make it useful. And I found that to be like incredibly powerful for me. So please ask questions if there's something that doesn't sit right, or if you want to understand something a little more deeply.
Or just challenge you.
Or challenge me. Please challenge me. All right. So, if you plot these two things against each other on a graph, this concept of our capacity for influencing others versus our capacity for caring for others, and we start down here with ourself, and we move up through others, and we talk about lots of others over here, and lots of others, our capacity for influence, our capacity for caring. Some interesting patterns emerge. First pattern I notice is down here. People that don't learn to influence powerfully and don't care much about others, when they behave in ways that get them what they want, we call them crazy. We call them psychopaths. Turns out there's like 1% to 2% of the population that's diagnostically psychopathic. Lots of them are in prisons. They don't have a whole lot of influence in the world outside of the people that they hurt. Okay? Here's another pattern. There are people that become successful by lots of societal measures. Fame, money, power, fortune, however you want to define it, without learning to care much, or without even caring much for others. We have labels for those people too. We sometimes call them sociopaths, narcissists. Machiavellian types of leaders. Turns out Martha Stout, PhD, wrote a book called The Sociopath Next Door, where she claimed that 3 to 4%, and there's other scientific evidence behind this number, this is the general range, of the general population is authentically, diagnostically sociopathic. 3 to 4%. So I run a company with 250 people, so if I do the math on that, it means I've got 6 to 9 sociopaths in my range somewhere. As I look
Josh
at
not being one of them.
It's possible. It turns out that there are some populations of populations, groups of people, where that statistic is higher. There's another book written by another PhD. It's called Snakes in Suits. It talks about some professions like surgeons or attorneys or CEOs, where the population of sociopaths is slightly higher. Okay? And there are some professions where it's lower. Nursing, caregiving, people that seek out those professions are probably less likely to be sociopathic. Right? All right, here's another pattern that emerges over here, where there's folks with some social limitations. And they may be IQ limitations, because I believe, and the evidence shows, actually, that super high EQ people are also often super high IQ people. There's a correlation between those two. Now you think about people that are over here, right? People like this. #MeToo. One of the most powerful people in Hollywood.
Was
Until the lid got taken off the can and we can see what's going on.
Got 24 years.
23. Don't exaggerate.
All right. How about this guy? The father of the largest pyramid scheme in the history of mankind. Bernie Madoff. Right? Charming, highly influential, extremely wealthy, billions of dollars he pilfered from so many innocent people. How about that nasty German guy in World War II that led 18.2 million soldiers to kill ruthlessly 5.5 million unarmed, helpless, defenseless people because of their ethnicity? That's pretty much sociopathic behavior, right? But that's not real leadership. What do we consider real leadership? So I asked you this question. So and here's what I believe. Most normal people are in this range. This is how we define normalcy. If we have our limits, we influence the people we influence, our spheres of influence, we care for the people we care for our neighbors more than we care for everyone else. But who do we consider the greatest leaders? And if I ask you to write down, who do you consider the greatest leader? Fast, write it down. I've done this in lots and lots of group sessions, and I always get the same results. And you can probably guess what results I get. Anybody want to throw some names out there? Abe Lincoln, what was that?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs comes up, but he's definitely not in the top 10.
Gandhi.
Probably because of the book that recently came out about it. Mahatma Gandhi always comes up, 100% of the time. Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Maya Angelou. Walt Disney comes up a lot recently. I think it's probably because of that documentary, but he almost always comes up. Who else? Winston Churchill. John F. Kennedy often comes up. All right, here's the deal with these people. If you study their lives in any depth, any one of them, you will find in their context that they were normal people just like you and I. They had behaviors. Sometimes I wake up and I'm antisocial, and sometimes I feel I act mean, and I'm not sure why until I sit back and analyze my behavior. But most of the time I'm normal. I bounce around in different contexts, in different situations, leading different people. Right? And if you study these people, you'll find the same exact thing. But why do we put them up there? Every one of them left us with something powerful. And we think about it, and we're taught it, and their words resonated. Their words led to actions that made the world a better place. They caused more caring to occur, and they were highly influential, so we put them into this great leaders category. Does this make sense? Okay. Business leaders, I believe, can't go up there, because we're not willing to die for their cause, Our cause isn't that great. We're profit-mongering capitalists at the end of the day, and we live in reality. Because any one of you guys willing to die for your business? I don't think so. Not going to happen. So we're business leaders, so we have a cause that is to make a profit and to make the world a better place through our products and services. This is what I believe. The great ones cause this to occur. They cause a shift of their ecosystem in this general direction. They cause their people to care more, and they cause more influence in the world through their products and services in that context. They cause the shift to occur for people. That's what great leaders do, great business leaders. This is my belief. Now, the best business leaders do this efficiently. So not only do they draw people up, they make the world a better place through their products and services, they also make a profit. And they take that profit and they're very purposeful about what they do with it. The best business leaders don't take all that profit and shove it back in their pockets. The best business leaders take it and purposefully and articulately reinvest in their people. They reinvest in their customers. They reinvest in their communities, make the world a better place around them. They make sure they take less from the planet than they give back to it. They do a little R&D. They make the world an even better place through their products and services, through research and development. And yeah, they take some of their money and they give it back to the shareholders because the shareholders took a risk, and that's why they're in business. We are not altruistic. We are running a real business, and we're profit-minded capitalists, and that's how business works. This is what I believe great business leadership is all about. Any questions?
I know you go over it, but explain to them context, how important context is.
Oh, you want me to, all right.
Yeah, because it's missed so many times.
It is missed. I've been thinking about this since you asked me that question. All right, let me finish this model out, and then I'll do the culture thing. If you draw a line down the middle of the chart here, and you take your own leadership behaviors, when you lead others, every leadership behavior you deploy can be mapped on this graph somewhere. You guys see that? Like when I'm gonna get somebody to do something, even my children, I'm gonna get them to do something, I have a choice. And I can work to inspire them, or I can work to manipulate them. So when you operate below the line, I call these manipulation behaviors, and they're normal, and we all do them. Anyone that says they don't is a liar. And there are inspiration behaviors. If you have children and you ever told them that Santa Claus is real, go clean your room or you're going to get coal in your stocking. I was told by one member that that's called coal shaming. I shouldn't do that.
Coal shaming?
Coal shaming, apparently that's a thing. So you have a choice. So you can tell your kids Santa Claus is real, go clean your room, you're going to get coal in your stocking. We do this by default all the time because it's easier. It's easier. It's easier to manipulate. We can use fear. You know, they're here to get a paycheck and we can make them fear the loss of their job. That's one strategy for getting people to do what we need them to do. The harder thing to do is to inspire them. It's always harder work to inspire than it is to manipulate. That's why we often default to these behaviors. And all I'm asking you to do is to think about it. If you're going to deploy a manipulation tactic, just at least think about it. And what could you be doing better to get people to behave in ways that are productive, that cause more caring to occur, and are more influential in the context of your business? All right, so, any questions, by the way? About manipulation versus inspiration, why we do it?
Are
So you
there-
weren't going to ask me questions today.
I can't help myself. Are there a set of sort of well-documented behaviors that do that combination? So demonstrate caring and create influence?
Mm-hmm. I believe there are, and I believe there's a framework, it's called the momentum framework, and the loyalty ladder, that can help guide you in what those behaviors should be.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I know where we're going now.
All right. So yeah, I believe there are, but I think it's the behaviors are different in every business. So you have to take the concepts, the theoretical concepts back, and tactically make them work inside of your businesses. And you won't get it right. Hopefully, though, you get it better. And that's my intent, is to make the world a better place. The model is right. You'll never get it perfect. You're never done. You're always going to have competition. You're always going to have changes in the environment. You're going to have things like black swans, like the coronavirus, come out of nowhere and change your business. You got to deal with it. All right, and if you're set up for long-term success, it'll be a lot easier because you've done the hard work of inspiring your people to care about your mission and to make the world a better place for your products and services. If you're operating on using only manipulation tactics, you have to keep doing them. Extrinsic motivators you have to keep doing. If the only tool you have to motivate your people is money, that's the only way you can keep motivating your people is with money. You want to get more work out of them, you give them more money. That's not a sustainable business model. You got to get people to care about the work they're doing. You got to tie them, you got to make sure that they understand why they're working and how we're adding value to the world, how we're making the world a better place. It's very hard in the advertising industry, by the way. Go ahead, John.
So I've got a question, which is, and it always, I think, because I'm a big believer in these sort of inspirational tactics versus manipulative tactics. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in regards to this is always comes down to, it sounds great,
Yeah.
and with a great team of the ideal people, it works great.
Yeah, because they're doing it by default.
Well,
They
and
know
they have the capability, even if they aren't doing it by default, to like
Yeah.
understand your rational, like inspirational message and accordingly. I think where I've seen the challenge is in two areas. Number one is there are certain businesses that sort of, by economic reality, end up having to employ people who are sort of less susceptible to those kinds of messages. Fortunately, we don't work in one of those, but a lot of companies do.
Yeah, if you're using minimum wage labor, this conversation came up yesterday. It's very hard. So if people are still, so there's the happiness threshold of like $70-some thousand a year. Like over that amount, people start to focus. That's like an inflection point where people start to focus on more inspirational things personally, and they start to care more about others versus worrying about feeding their kids and living paycheck to paycheck. And when you're operating, you have to think about that. So as a leader, you have to understand, recognize that, and work to inspire those people. I think it's harder work. This came up yesterday in our same question, by the way. I think it's harder, and you have to be more focused on learning how to inspire when you have that type of a labor force. I don't have to worry about that as much because I have a pretty freaking expensive labor force in my world because I build software for a living. But it's the same problem. It's just a different problem, and you have to solve it in a different way. And I'm going to talk a lot about motivation today. Cool. That will hopefully answer some of your questions.
So, the other aspect of the question is it's more like a local maximum or local minimum, getting through this trough. Like,
yes.
So where I am is there, and this is the case in every company, is that you have this distribution of people on your team, some of whom are totally on board and very susceptible
yes.
to this kind of inspiration, and you always have the bottom third or the bottom whatever percent who just aren't going to get on board. And what do you do about?
I'm going to talk about that.
Okay.
I promise
do you fire them all and
I promise you I will answer that question.
Okay, good. That's a tough one.
It's not that tough. It's part of leadership. It's not that tough. I will answer the question.
Quickly, where would incentives fall between
They're manipulation tactics. But it's all about intent. So if your intent is to share in the wealth, to invest in your people, and you have excess capital, and that's why you're doing it, if that is the intent, that's positive intent. You're making the world a better place, you're sharing a little wealth. That's a good thing.
But it's still manipulated.
But it's, no, not necessarily. If the intent is, hey, if I give them this monetary incentive, and it'll make them work harder, then that's a manipulation tactic. And it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It certainly works, especially if people are chasing, if they're in the wheel and they're manual labor. It's been proven to work. It doesn't work as well at the higher levels though. Once people are over a certain threshold, money doesn't work as much as a motivator. Lots of evidence to prove that.
Well, I guess they also start to gain the system too.
Oh, of course.
If it's
Here's
just
the deal.
a motivation.
I'm going to talk a lot about this. So hold on to that question because I'm going to answer it in a different way. Is that fair? I promise you I'll answer it in a different way. So going back to this model, super quick. What is the one tool that all of these people have in common? What is the one tool that all of these people up here have in common? There's only one. I mentioned it earlier.
Themselves.
The one tool, their communication, the words that they use, is their tool for deploying what they want to get the change to occur in the world that they want to occur. This is the only tool they have. It's the only tool any of us have to lead with. Right? And you start with the words and you build context. You build the environment as a leader that causes the actions to occur in others. And when actions occur from the words you use, that's leadership. And you all have different context. But it looks like this. Oh, I don't usually do this, so this is, I think I did it for you guys. Anyway,
I asked the same question.
yeah, so context, I believe, looks like this. I don't think you've seen this model yet, Josh. It starts with our words and our lexicon, being purposeful with it. And it moves through our actual beliefs that are lived. So our lived beliefs and values. Some companies paint their values on the wall, but you get in there and you realize that's not the values they're espousing. When those values are used and lived and we're purposeful with those words, when they mean something in context, this is where culture starts to get stronger. The lived values turn into things like mantras and mission statements that actually get used, that are spoken. When they're not spoken, they're not powerful. So if you think about the mantras that you want to espouse, they better support the values, and you better have the right words and be using the words in the same way. And I'm going to talk a lot about like the word trust, for example, today. We're going to go deep on that one word, because I think it's foundational to everything we do. All right. Mantras turn into the stories and lore that live within our cultures. Stories and lore. Think about how the military works. This is how it works. This is how they build culture in the military, which have heroes and villains. These things turn into manifestations of what we might call our brand, which includes all sorts of artifacts, representations, symbols. Things that bind us together. You know, in some cultures, hand signs, gang signs. You know, this is part of culture building. This turns into the conversations that happen in the hallways, in between people, in the context of all of this. This is essentially foundational for context. Okay? And you create this, and it all starts with the words. It starts with how you're using the words purposefully, how you take your values and make them real, how you turn them into mantras, statements that get used over and over again, and how you stamp out the ones that you don't want being used. Stories and lore, brand and artifacts, turns into conversations that happen when you're not present. They happen in the hallways. They happen when you're not there. They're still happening. Conversation is where culture really lives. It's in how people speak to each other. It's in the values that you espouse through the language that you use. And that turns into powerful action towards a positive result.
Explain mantras, because we very seldom hear that.
Like our mission statement, move, touch, inspire.
But
Like that's what we're all about, move, touch, inspire. Everybody in my company knows that phrase, move, touch, inspire. That's what we're about, that's what we do. If anything we're doing isn't moving, touching, inspiring, if it's not aligned with that, I want to hear about it. If you don't believe in it, if you can't sign up for it, I want to hear about that. I want you to challenge that. Because it might mean you don't belong here. Or it might mean we need to change it. So for us, Move, Touch, Inspire, by the way, it's marketing speak for trust, loyalty, advocacy. It's how we teach our people the importance of trust, loyalty, and advocacy because I don't want to poison those words, especially in the marketing space. So we use Move, Touch, Inspire. So our mission statement is we solve challenging technology problems so that our clients can move, touch, and inspire the world. And the mantra out of that is Move, Touch, Inspire. TLA is another one. TLA. Yeah.
What are the axes here? Are they the same capacity for?
Let's see, you haven't seen this. I did this yesterday for the first time ever to a group. Because he asked me the same question about context. All right, so the axes here are quantity. And to explain it fully, I have to show it to you in another way. Quantity, this is how context occurs. Quantity and quality. Okay. So quantity and quality. You want high quality conversations occurring in a high quality way. Let me show it in a slightly different way. And again, this isn't fully baked, so you guys are getting like access to content I haven't shared out yet. If you do it in a 4-quadrant, sort of 2x2 model, you got high and low quality, and you got high and low quantity, right? When you have all of this contextual stuff, all of this contextual stuff occurring by default. Like, you're not being purposeful about your words, you're not being purposeful about your values, your mantras, your stories, your brand. You have what's called an ad hoc culture. What I believe is ad hoc. It's just happening by default. It's by default. If you have high quantity of things going on in this space, like people are using these words all the time, like buzzwords, you get what you get over here isn't ad hoc. You get chaotic culture. You get chaotic culture. This is a culture map. And that's sort of how context occurs this I believe, I haven't even titled it yet. It's like how context occurs in culture. So the culture map looks like this. So ad hoc culture down here. And up here you have siloed cultures. Siloed or hero or guru culture. They're siloed, where you got really good things going on in pockets. And they may even be siloing themselves off because they don't want to be exposed to all this other chaotic stuff that's going on. You have pockets of the org that are doing really well and pockets that aren't. That's a silo culture. High quantity or high quality, but in low quantity. And we all understand, once you see this graph, you understand how important conversation is for culture, and how important language is for culture. And your job as a leader is to look at this map and say, okay, I need to move this chaotic stuff, these buzzwords. I need to learn how to convert our chaotic culture into a more purposeful culture, because this is where the powerful culture comes from. It's where you get powerful action, powerful shared action towards a common result. And you do that through the momentum framework that I'm going to share with you in a little bit. The momentum framework is the tool that will help you do that, help you cause this to occur. You need to craft these stories. You need to take what's going on and you need to craft it and be purposeful about it. Over here, you got it working in some areas, so you need to tell it. You need to take the stories that are, the things that are working, and you need to tell those, right? So your job as a leader is to amplify what's working and squash out what's not. Amplify what's working, squash out what's not. It is not your job to come down from the mountain with a full-baked culture. These are the words we're going to use. These are the values we're going to espouse. These are the mantras we're going to use. That's not your job as a leader. Your job is to create the environment so that this context occurs without you present. And it's hard freaking work. Inspiration is hard work.
Are you always trying to revert to the mean to try to balance the four quadrants? If you're a little too heavy in one place, you're trying to...
No. You are always trying to push and amplify in this general direction to the greatest degree possible. You're not trying to get to the mean. You want to be extraordinary.
Does everybody know what quadrant they're in? You don't have to say it, I'm just curious.
I say we're on the edge of chaotic culture. Moving up.
Anybody else want to
Trending
volunteer
north.
where they are?
We used to be right in the lower left. Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't seen any of this stuff. This is all new.
We definitely have a silo.
How long did it take you
See
to
what I
get
love
from
about Vistage? It gives me an opportunity to experiment with stuff like this.
2 years?
I mean, after we realized it was an issue.
The chaotic culture.
It was funny, I'm curious, like, what practice, when you find yourself with ad hoc culture?
Yeah.
What is our best practices for even starting? Because like, as you
I'm
said.
going to share some tools with you.
Even,
And I don't think you can define a process.
right.
I think I love the word you use, best practices. You're always practicing, and you always know what's best now, but you keep that open mind, because all models are wrong, some models are useful. You keep that always an eye on what's going to be better, what can we do better, and how can I coach my people to do better. Yeah. Great question. So when I get through the momentum framework, if you still hang on to that question, we still have it. But I don't think there's a perfect answer for every industry that's going to work for every company. You got to figure that out as leadership. It's hard work. Here's one thing I promise you. I'm not going to give you any silver bullets today. There's nothing you're going to go back with. Ooh, I'm going to solve all the world's problems. Yeah, close the book.
I'm out.
Leadership
You're the one cheater.
is something you need to sign up for, be committed to for the rest of your life. Never, ever done. Are you going to disrupt the whole world?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do that.
I do like what you said though about amplifying what's working. Did you say stamping out what's not?
Stomping out what's not.
Yeah, like because I've seen that works. It's there isn't a silver bullet, but by consistently nudging the culture in the direction you want, you can make a difference. It's painful and slow, and I'd love to get more tips on how to do it better.
Well, I'm going to give you a bunch of tips. I'll give you some ideas that will spur things that you can bring back to the company. And I'm not going to give you any specific tactics because I don't think there are. I don't think there is a specific formula that works for everybody. There's only generic ideas. All right. Those are not in the slide deck, by the way.
They're about to be.
They're in Yvonne's queue.
They're about to be.
They're in Yvonne's queue.
Send it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
But
push on Yvonne.
I should have said something. I have these cameras for my own training purpose. Is that all right with everybody? I'm not gonna. This isn't public, so I had emailed Phil and asked, but I just wanted to get
If
the
you have an
verbal yes.
objection, he'll turn
We're
it
not gonna, our imperfect questions aren't gonna show up on YouTube.
No, I'll, all questions will be done with a voice actor and go through grammatical
There you
process.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trending towards Patrick Stewart.
Okay. Okay. So the questions you guys had about profit. I'm gonna hit that up next. Should we take a little break?
Yeah, John. I think John wants to hear it, so.
Yeah. Let's take
Sure.
profit as a key metric in the business. Let's talk about that for a minute. I believe there's 5 core arguments to be made that profit should not be your North Star metric. Earmuffs for CEOs in the room. I'm just kidding. I think there's 5 solid arguments to be made that you should not use this as your North Star metric. It's important to business. It's like oxygen to you or I. Like without it, the business dies. You can't operate a business without a profit. And obviously, we want to maximize profit, especially when you see this model over here. If we actually believe that we're making the world a better place through our products and services, profit gives us the ability to do all of these things. Give our people a little more better lives, to give our customers better lives, to give our communities, make our communities better. Profit gives us these choices that we wouldn't have if we didn't have a profit. But it doesn't get us, think about it like oxygen for us, like fuel. Simon Sinek has a cool analogy for this. You put gas in your car, but you don't get in your car for the gas. That's how profit is for a business. You need it. It's like oxygen to your eye. We need to breathe, but we don't get up in the morning going to breathe. Like we have to breathe or we die. Profit is the same thing for a business. The first big problem, though, using it as our North Star metric, is that, and by the way, when I did my MBA at the Simon School of Business, the first book they made me read was The Goal by L.U. Goldratt. And The Goal is a parable, it's a business parable, about the theory of constraints and how the whole, it's Keynesian economics based. Like the point of the business is to maximize shareholder value, so everything we do should be to chase shareholder value and profit. And I think that's sociopathic. I'm going to explain why. So the first problem with profit as our only motivator is it's a lagging indicator. It tells you everything, it tells you how good you've done after you've done everything else in the business. Agreed? It's the actual ultimate lagging indicator. You have to do a bunch of things. So what are some leading indicators in your businesses, guys and gals? What are some leading indicators? Leads, marketing, your marketing funnel. What else? Your sales funnel, once they're in the funnel, how able are you to convert them? That's a leading indicator of how much profit will be available. What else? Work in progress, your delivery funnel, how much you'll actually be able to bill or charge for, whatever your business is. And you even have a warranty funnel, like how much do you have to give back because you screwed things up?
Or retention rate, churn rate.
Retention, churn rate, like recurring sales. Okay, what is the most leading indicator you could get? What's the furthest to the left that you could possibly get? In any business ecosystem, what's the furthest to the left you can possibly get?
Awareness.
Awareness? That's more like marketing. Ideas? Maybe that could be a behavior that you could observe. The key here is, I believe that the most leading indicator you can get in any ecosystem of people is how people are behaving today. How the people in your ecosystem are behaving today. Let me explain. I believe the goal of every business is to produce as many of these as you possibly can. Advocates. I define an advocate, to be purposeful with my words, this is what you have to do if you're going to be a great leader, is one who invests in the future of my business. And this works personally too, right? Like, personally, you have advocates in your life. You have people that invest in your future. Right? For the business, imagine a world, just imagine a world for a moment, where all of the people that work for you were advocates of what you were doing in the world, were advocates of what the business was all about. Imagine how that would feel, and what that would look like. Imagine a world where you were maximizing the number of customers who were advocates of your work, of the work that you did. What would that look like? How would that feel? You'd have to do a lot less marketing, a lot less sales, a lot less recruiting in HR. Right? The world becomes a better place. This is, I believe, the goal of every business. But we don't even talk about it. Not very much. We talk about referrals and referral rates and retention rates and things like that. And here's another universal truth. I believe all advocacy comes from loyalty. And I define loyalty a little differently than you do. I define loyalty to mean one who engages. Engages, like actually engages with the business at an expected, or the products and services, at an expected interval. There's something magical that happens when someone has a periodic engagement with you when you expect them to. Like, these are the people that aren't out looking for competitors, and they never will. Because you're solving problems for them, you're beyond the trust threshold. And by the way, you never earn loyalty. You never earn loyalty unless they first trust you. Sounds like common sense. And trust I define as one who invests. People that trust you are one who invests in you. Invests. Not invests in your future, very different. Invest things. And we're going to get back to trust. We're going to spend a lot of time with this word trust, because as you can see, there's no opportunity for loyalty if you can't earn trust. And there's no opportunity for advocacy if you can't earn loyalty. It's foundational. It's fundamental. It looks like this. You have a pool of advocates, a Venn diagram here, guys. You have a pool of advocates in your ecosystem, right? All of you do, or you probably wouldn't have successful businesses. There's some advocates in your ecosystem, right? There's a larger pool of customers who are somewhat loyal, in most cases. There's a larger pool of people that are loyal, but they're not quite advocates yet. They haven't put their personal seal of approval on your brand, they haven't invested in your future, but they keep. And there's an even larger pool of people who trust you and have done business with you. They've partnered with some cash, they've invested in some way. It's a larger pool. The rest of the paper, and probably the rest of the room, represents all of the universe of humans out there that aren't in your trust circle, they're not in your loyalty circle, they're not in your advocacy circle. I think it's an imperative to your businesses to understand, who are these people? What do they look like? Because you have the most opportunity to build relationships with people that you can get to this stage. So your marketing should be focused on finding these people, figuring out who they are, understanding them in great detail, and figuring out where can I find the next ones. Because these are the folks that don't complain about your pricing, they don't argue about every little thing, they understand what you're about, they care about what you're about, they are your people. And we need to move towards that.
I think the question that comes into my mind is, with this is, are there counterexamples, like businesses that are great and do really well without advocates?
Of course there are.
Um,
There's plenty. There's plenty. You know, if you get into a monopsony where you're the only choice because you have a patent and you take advantage of people, you know, there's lots of examples of that through history where they made a lot of money. But I call those businesses sociopathic, and the minute things break down for them, it doesn't work anymore, and they go away. If you want to build a sustainable business, it's always about the relationships that you build. Of course, you can find financial success. Depends on how you define success.
Well, no, I think the question is, like, obviously, you can think of classic examples, like, you know, there's advocates for Tesla. You know,
Sure.
I own one, I'm an advocate for it. But that's the sort of thing that people advocate, right? But then
Maybe.
there's like a
So-
trash hauling service.
You-
Like, I'm not gonna be an advocate for it, even though they make a great business and not sociopathic at all.
Are you sure? I tip my trash man every year at Christmas. I tip him, because you know what? I see him out
that mean you're an
there
advocate?
running around and picking up trash. I'm an advocate of him, because I see him running around picking up trash when the wind blows over the thing and he runs around and picks it up. He cares about his work. He's a great guy. So I tip him. I give him $100 every Christmas. That's me. That's not every case. And I'm not saying that every business should be like that. But imagine if you ran the trash company and all of your people did that. How different would the world be?
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's all I'm saying.
I guess maybe the definition of advocate I was thinking of is like a little bit more hard to reach for, but your definition may be better.
You gotta, here's the thing about leadership and words. Here's the thing about words. You are the leader in your organization. You get to define, how am I gonna use these words and what do they mean to us? And if you don't, you have an ad hoc culture. If you don't spend time on the things that matter and the things that you're measuring, Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. If this is what you want to see happen in the world, if you want to see this happen in the world, you need to be purposeful about the words you're using to cause this to happen in the world. That's all. And you get to choose, how are you going to use this word? What does an advocate actually mean? And if you don't define it to mean something purposeful and useful that everybody can share, you're in an ad hoc world. You with me?
Yeah.
All right.
It's more of
Please.
an art line.
Yeah.
We're living in a world now with, I hate to say it, but the internet is out there, and it's so easy to be an advocate or be a detractor.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm going to talk about that later.
Should I stop?
No, please keep going. Keep going.
I'm just trying to think that we're always constantly trying to look at the people that are saying negative things. How far do you go to try to really contact, say, hey, we really right? What do you do to, you know, pull that negative back if you really feel it's wrong? Because there's a conflict of that in our company. That maybe we ought to just leave it alone.
Here's what I believe about that. And this is a little off topic, but it's a great question. Here's what I believe. If you knew who your advocates were, and they give you negative feedback, you better address that. If it's somebody who's out here, who cares? Who cares? If it's somebody that's out here. But if it's somebody that's in here or has the potential to be in there, you better address it.
Yeah, but if they're, you know, posting that comment and saying, these guys are really shit. Other people that are looking,
Yeah.
we're not an advocate, we're looking
Yeah.
for somebody, you know, they give it a lot of weight sometimes.
Yep, I'm not going to give you a perfect answer to that question because I
Why
think
not?
every business is different. And in your business, I don't know your business that well. This is the business, right, Palace? I don't know it that well other than I buy P90 tape probably from you. Because I restore daguerreotypes. It was a hobby. Yeah, it's another conversation. But I think it's a relatively small, tight-knit group of people that you sell to. So I think in your world, I think it's really important to respond to all the feedback that you get in your world. That's my personal opinion. Not without knowing too much about your business. But I don't think that's the case for everybody. Brene Brown, is anybody familiar with Brene Brown? In one of her most recent books, she talks about like a lot of criticism that she's been getting online about people like beating up her stuff. And she's like, at some point she decided to ignore it. But she has a huge group of these people that will respond for her. If you get to that point, your advocates will be out there in the world defending you, and then you don't have to. If this is what you focus on, and you build enough of these, they'll take care of you in the world. But that's a different business in a different context. It's all about context. And you have to figure out the right way to approach problems like that. But I am going to talk about it a little bit more later. Great question. Anybody else?
I'm trying to look at this through the lens of our company.
Yeah.
We're a creative services firm, so we live and die by projects. So I'm trying to kind of map out.
You don't live and die by projects.
Well,
You live and die by the advocates that you produce as a result of the projects that you deploy. That's what you live and die by.
very true, very true. Okay,
Otherwise, you're chasing transactions.
you're absolutely right. So, okay.
I'm in your space, so I
Horrible
understand.
way for me to say that.
Yeah.
We need projects and we
You don't need
need
profit.
advocates.
You need relationships.
We need relationships.
That's the flip you need to have happen.
Right. So I just want to kind of map out really quickly who's who between those who trust, those who are loyal, those who are advocates.
This is the art of leadership. You have to figure that out in your business.
Okay.
I'll give you some tips, but I'm not going to give you all the answers.
I don't expect that.
Yeah.
But, because I know their business pretty well, 60% of your revenue this year is coming from existing previous clients?
More than that, but yeah.
So that's kind of what I want to get. I kind of want to figure out how our clients are loyal or if they're advocates.
Yeah. I think it's very lazy. I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm going to call you out on this one. I think it's very lazy leadership to consider a customer loyal just because they keep buying from you. I didn't show you that model either, but I've got a model.
Okay, they'll need it.
I've got a proof for it. I got a proof for it.
Well, I'm really interested.
Yeah, okay. So, come back to this model. Come back to this model. What's the most leading indicator you can get in any ecosystem? I call this contextual model, by the way, I call it how metrics are related. How metrics are related. What's the most leading indicator you could get? Behaviors, what would they look like? I'll give you a clue. If you knew, because you were measuring, trust, loyalty, and advocacy, and you had KPIs for those things, you had solid KPIs, meaning you were measuring what percentage of my customers, because I had an advocacy KPI, are investing in the future of my business. I had a catalog of those behaviors and I was keeping track of that. You'd know who your advocates were. None of you probably know who your advocates are. You know who some of your advocates are, but you don't have a good understanding or a culture that's built around only producing advocates. All right. If you had a KPI for this, a loyalty KPI, you would know how many of my customers in my ecosystem are behaving as though they're loyal. And by the way, whatever metrics you come up with, you won't get them perfect and you won't get them right. That's not the point. The point is to get better and to create the culture where this occurs without you in the room. And what gets measured is what gets managed. If you had a KPI for trust, same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
So what might be a hallmark of
We're going to talk about that.
loyal?
We're not going to talk about loyalty today, but we will build a KPI for trust. I will give you a construct for building your own KPI for trust. That's my promise to you. Is that fair?
It is on the stuff.
And then you can, and in your workbook, there's a tool set that will help you work through how do I come up with a metric for loyalty?
Even better.
How do I come up with a metric for advocacy? All right. Trust, loyalty, advocacy. So, I told you this was the first problem, right? That it's a lagging indicator. This is one argument for why it shouldn't be a North Star metric. It's the result of doing all of these other things great. But it shouldn't be the North Star metric. The second reason is all of these metrics here, at the end of the day, these are efficiency metrics. They tell you how efficient you are. But they don't tell you how effective you are. Effective at actually building relationships with real humans, with customers and with employees. These are effectiveness metrics. That's number 2 problem. Or number 2 argument for why these should be your North Star metrics. These tell you how effective you are, building relationships with the people in your ecosystem. These tell you how efficient you are. The third reason is that these are all short-term. And they're important. They're all important. I'm not arguing the importance of understanding what your marketing funnel looks like, your sales funnel looks like, your work in progress, and minimizing that, right, to maximize profit. I'm not, minimizing the importance of all of these things, but they're short-term metrics. And they're relatively easy to measure, that's why we measure them. This is hard work. These are really hard to measure. They're really hard to infuse into the culture. But they are long-term metrics. You will know, if you do a good job of this, and it's hard work, and it's different in every business, so there's no magic formula. But if you imagine if you knew who trusted you, who was loyal, who was advocates, through behaviors, you had a framework for that. You'd know how much profit would be available in the long run. And you can increase. So you see these going up, you'll see that all these other numbers going up. Think about it. More advocates means more leads in the funnel. More loyalty means less concern around customer retention. Right? More trust means more opportunities in the hopper to earn loyalty, to earn advocacy. It makes sense. These are the leading indicators. These are longer term metrics though. Like there's a big lag time. And every business is going to have a different lag time. This question came up yesterday, right? Every business will have a different lag time between when you see a change here and you see a result here. Sometimes it'll happen, some businesses it'll happen fast and some it'll happen very slow. All right. Did you have a question?
Well, there's limits to that too, right, though, because like I'm thinking of a counterexample of like WeWork. They went crazy on trust, loyalty, advocacy, at the expense of sustainable business and profit, and it backfired when the market realized that, hey, there's actually nothing financial behind this that made sense.
Yeah, they had none of this efficiency stuff. They didn't really have a business model.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother problem. Like you got to have a business model that makes money at some point. I mean, Bezos is
What it suggests is that those aren't
Bezos is
only
the extreme
metrics.
of that.
Yeah.
So what Amazon has done has been the extreme, and he made it work out. But it took a long time and a lot of money. It's possible, but every business is going to work that way. You got to have a sustainable business model at some point.
So just for clarity, this isn't, the behaviors that make you effective are not substitutes for being efficient.
No,
They're
different.
Gotcha.
It's a different focus.
This is yes and, you need both.
Yes, and. Yeah, and here's this language here came from a Vistage member who brought it up in one of these sessions, and I added it to the model. These are management metrics, and you need to manage the business. It doesn't go away. But these are leadership metrics. Because we lead people, and we manage money, and we manage efficiency. We lead people. Okay? And lastly, this is the most important one. The science supports this, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about today. These metrics over here are non-motivating metrics. In fact, the only people they motivate is the people that get to put the profit in their pocket. Now, and if you're using these metrics to motivate, here's what I guarantee you. If you're using dollar incentives, for example, as the only motivation tactic that you have, here's what I promise you. Not only are your people focused on profit, they're also focused on how much of that profit they can extract for themselves. Because that's what money does. And you're welcome to do that, and it works really well at the low end. There's been evidence to show, piece rate incentives work at the low end because those people are chasing dollars. That's the mode of life they're in. But that's not a very inspiring way to motivate. And every business is different, you gotta find a balance. But I believe that these are non-motivating metrics. These, science shows us, and there's reasons behind it, but these are motivating. These are motivating metrics. And that, I think, is the biggest reason that you need to figure this out. Because if you can show people how they're making the world a better place for others, Viktor Frankl, Edward Becker, Ed DC, Richard Ryan, self-determination theory, Abraham Maslow, the father of positive psychology, even Seligman's work. If you read it, if you understand it in depth, you'll understand that people are motivated when they can see how their work, how their effort, how their energy solves problems for other people. And this is a way to do that. This is a way to show them through numbers that their work is having an impact. They're motivating metrics. Did I answer your question from earlier, John?
Yeah, no, this is, I love it.
But
Yeah.
as you said, it's industry by industry.
Yeah.
So the more mundane the industry, the harder this is.
Absolutely.
Okay, in other words, the
Absolutely.
if you're a trash collector or you're a warehouse, it's a lot different than if you were in the medical science business.
Saving lives, right?
Saving lives. So
Absolutely.
trying to find that purposeful change is,
It's harder.
again, there's a context, depends on where you are in the food chain.
Okay. That's me too, how I did that diagram.
Can I just comment?
But
on
people,
that?
by the way, are always
Yeah,
making fun of
sure.
me because I come back from these things with like all these
Cool.
weird models and ideas. Like, another one to learn.
Now I got the context.
So, Phil, to your comment, as you, it depends on the industry. There's a case study, I forget the name of it, but there's a famous case study where there's a parts manufacturer in the Midwest, and they basically just gave their machinists total autonomy. And they said, we're gonna pay you for every piece that you create that meets the quality standard. And here's the shop, you've got everything you need here, make one a day, make 50 a day. And they, dramatically increased their efficiency. They like tripled out, right? Having seen.
Tripled or up?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was nuts. It was an HBS case. But what's interesting here in this context, we haven't gotten to the self-motivation stuff. I think what people attribute that to is everyone got paid more. My hunch is a huge part of that was the autonomy.
Sure.
It was just, you have choice. So I'm stealing a little Sean's thunder around motivation, intrinsic motivation. But I think you can find a way to give your teams, even if it's low level, some autonomy, right? That's a better intrinsic motivator.
That's leadership, but using a higher purpose.
It's
And
more
that,
sustainable.
they're two different things, they're two different
They're
variables.
two very different things. I think that's a short-term win.
Yeah,
And I haven't argued, that's a whole different conversation, I don't want to take us off track.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's useful, it's a useful proof for how powerful autonomy is, because obviously I believe that. But it's not the whole answer, and it's not a long-term answer, because the business still will have to operate. What happens when those people leave?
I'm just looking across the table and saying, if I have to say that we were preserving works of art, I can do a much more inspirational speech than I can tell them the 50 years that I have gotten star-kissed tuna fish on a shelf, okay?
In a more efficient way.
And
Right.
I believe, that, I've tried, believe me, to make it inspirational. I quit being inspired about 30 years on that, so it's hard to fit. So it can be done, and all of these tools, it's an arrow in your quiver. There's
It's an
not
arrow in the
one
quiver.
leadership. You use whatever you have available in the context within the time. So the more arrows you have to inspire, the better off you are. And there must be a multitude of things, but in certain industries are easier, in my opinion, from an inspirational leadership type of verbiage, et cetera, than others.
Fair enough.
Okay, I mean, you try it in the garbage industry or the demolition. I've got friends making a fortune in demolition, but that's not an easy one to say what the purpose is. Maybe.
Got it. I'm sold.
Okay.
I interrupted Sean.
That's
I wanna
okay.
interrupt
It's a
you.
good conversation. Any other questions before I move on to the next framework?
Yeah. So.
Okay. Now, on your desk in front of you is a card where I don't have, some of you I reached out on LinkedIn if I could find you, because that's what we do. But for my company, if you want to sign up periodically, not very often, but periodically, I'll do like a webinar, or I'll send out a note when we have new content. So if you want to be in the loop, fill the card out, give it to Josh, and we'll make sure you get looped in on all the stuff. I've been waiting till the end to ask for that, but it gets chaotic at the end, and I'm in a hurry, so I don't predict them. So if you're interested, sign up, fill out the card, give it to Josh, and we'll make sure that you are looped in. Oh, you don't have one? There's empty ones here too.
I can just cross out Joshua's
Oh.
name. Actually, take the empty.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
There you go. All right. Next model is where it starts to get real. This is where we actually start to get some tools you can bring back to business. Because this stuff, I love this stuff, but it's sort of heady and philosophical and it's hard to apply. Hard to apply empathy if you don't have a tool to apply empathy. So the next round of things I'm going to give you are much more tactical. You can take these back to the business, start using them tomorrow. This stuff, though, is the foundation of all the work. So, like these empathy models are foundational. Like you can't do most of the things I'm going to show you without a solid understanding of empathy and how it works. And being in the game to do this, to cause this to occur. More caring, to be highly influential. I'm trying to work on the tree here, Jonathan. I'm trying to keep tying it back to the tree. All right. All right, so the momentum framework is our core model for how to make this all occur in the world, tactically and strategically. And the momentum framework I came up with, discovered, so to speak, in the context of my business, because I build software for a living. We create software products, and I highly recommend that you don't get into this industry. It's a very hard industry with a lot of competitors. If you're running a business or you're leading a department, you probably get 50 emails a day from some company that says, hey, I got developers that are $10 an hour, they're cheap. You need a mobile app, we can whip one out in a week. Right? There's all this commoditization occurring. There's troves of labor in other countries that are much less expensive than a firm like mine. That's the low end of the market. And at the top end of the market, you've got all the big firms that are in the digital transformation space, from EY to Deloitte. They're charging $300 an hour, but they're the best, so to speak. They say. And literally, if you stand on any rooftop in New York and throw a stone in every direction, you're going to hit a couple of agencies that build software products, that build mobile apps, websites, whatever. There's a lot of competition. In my world, that's not even my real competition. My real competition is in the companies that I sell to. They have armies of developers bigger than my entire firm. That's my real competition. So it's incredibly hard to sell into. So, and it's a broken industry. Here's why it's a broken industry. It looks like this. I got clients, or potential clients, prospective clients, and they come to me with awesome, beautiful, green bags of money. Life is good, except that they never tell me how much is in the bag. It's mysterious. It's a mysterious bag of money. And it looks kind of like this. Like, okay, I want feature XYZ, and I want feature ABC, and it typically comes in the form of like an RFP. Unless they're already an advocate, and then I don't have to go through this process.
They want you to do that PDQ.
What's that?
PDQ.
PDQ, yeah. That's sorry. All right, so it comes in the form of an RFP or an RFQ or an RFI, and I have to respond. I got to be like, okay, I can build these features for you, and it'll cost this much, and it'll take this long, and then maybe I'll have an opportunity to get the work. Make sense? Except, if I deliver these features for you, here's what I promise you. Check the box, I'll deliver all those features, and you will be pissed off at me, even if I come in under budget, because it's not what you really need. Those are outputs that we need to produce, for sure. We need to produce some outputs. But software is not like a traditional engineering discipline. We think it should be, like, oh, we should be able to tell you what we want and get exactly what we ask for. But it's not. It has nothing to do with an engineering discipline where I need to know how many bolts and pieces of metal go into this product before I'm done with it. It's very dynamic, it's very flexible, and it's a very human enterprise, especially if you're building software that people use like I do. What you really want, Mr. Customer, is not these outputs. What you really want is for an outcome to occur that looks like this. You have users of the software, and I don't care if it's an intranet, it's your employees. If it's an extranet, it's your customers. If it's a web platform, it's your prospects. They're people in your ecosystem that you're trying to change behavior from. And what we want to see happen is we want to see trust, loyalty, and advocacy go up. in the form of our KPIs that we'll set together so that we'll know we're being successful. That's how we're gonna measure success. Who's gonna argue with that, if you can actually do that? Now, if you can see those metrics going up, right? And maybe we need these features, but if we look at the world through this lens, it's probable that we'll need some of these features, and you're probably right, but we might also need feature M and N, or PDQ, is it? In order to get it right. We might need some other features. And we need the flexibility, and we need to experiment our way into success. We need to understand, before we do anything else, the consumer, and what they actually care about in this context. And we haven't gotten any of that from your RFP process, Mr. Customer. So let's spend a day together and run a workshop where we establish a vision for this product and a roadmap. And by the way, there's another couple of components here that are missing to be able to produce a great product that actually does that. And this is the complete framework. Not only do we need these outputs, but I have some inputs that you need to be concerned with. I have inputs. Just like your businesses have inputs and outputs, I have inputs. Can you guess what the large item on my balance sheet is? From a cost perspective? My people? Yeah, maybe. That's my biggest line item. You know what the second biggest line item is? Healthcare to support that labor. Okay? My only real input is my team. It's my people. So in my world, it's my people. And I need those people to be strategically motivated. They're really smart, high-paid people. And if I give them a set of tactics to deploy, that's demotivating for them. We've got other proofs for that. I need to give them a vision that they can get after and use their creativity to go solve. Steve Jobs said, we hire smart people so they can tell us what to do, not so we can tell them what to do. And you'll get the best results from a development team that's highly motivated and capable, because you have to have capabilities. All right, so if you haven't guessed, like every consultant, I need a 2x2 4-quadrant model. So this is mine. At the top, I've got strategy. At the bottom, I've got tactics. And this is the 4-quadrant model that I think every business needs. You have inputs and outputs, strategy and tactics. And the more purposeful you are with these 4 quadrants, the more powerful your business will become, the more capable it will be of producing momentum that I define as the ability of your product or service to create trust, loyalty, and advocacy in a measurable way. That's momentum. Trust, remember I told you I'd show you trust, loyalty, and advocacy like 7 different ways? I'm gonna do that. All right, so trust, loyalty, and advocacy in a measurable way, that's momentum. And you need these 4 things: strategy, tactics, inputs, and outputs. And you all define them differently, and your businesses are all unique, but these are the 4 components. Okay, so I look for customers now that have this inspired intent. And most of them don't. I have to help them create it. But if I can't help them create it, here's what I promise you. If I take their money and we can't get them out of this tactical swim lane, if I can't get them into this mode over time, it's not going to be a lasting relationship for me. It's going to be a transaction. Highly pertinent in your realm, right? You're going to be doing project to project to project because you're operating in this lane. You got to move up here. Okay, so I look for customers that have this inspired intent. We don't really respond to RFPs unless we're part of the writing process, of course, which is the case for most services firms. Unless I can have this conversation, and in our challenger sale model, it looks like this. I run a workshop. If you have a software product, I run the workshop for $9,500. So for $9,500, we'll come in and we'll do this. We'll create a vision, we'll create a high-level roadmap, we'll get your team hyper pumped up about it, we'll set metrics, we'll get all this done. And if you're not happy at the end of that day, you get to keep the output. You get to keep the output, and I'll give you your money back. And we separate. And by the way, I recommend you do that with all of your vendors. Pick your top 3 vendors in the list and spend a day with each of them. Offer them each 10 grand, ask for your money back if they're not happy. If you're not happy with their output, and choose the one that's best for you. And I haven't lost that deal yet. I haven't lost that bet yet. Because I got a good process. I've got an incredible process for generating a vision, generating a roadmap, and getting people pumped up. Makes sense? Now, at the end of the day, in the long run, I do have to produce an ROI, or I don't have a sustainable business model. I don't have a sustainable customer. Which means I have to teach my innovation people how to communicate this. Like, at some point, trust has to convert into customer acquisitions or something of monetary value. At some point, loyalty has to convert into some sort of retention. And advocacy has to result in some sort of referral or something monetary. And the better job we do at tying these things together, the more long-term the relationship ends up being. I call this a money machine. I think all of your businesses operate the same way. You have inputs and outputs, you have a strategy, you have tactics. All right, so what is a vision? What does that even mean? So let's go deep on this and give you guys some tools. A vision is understanding, first and foremost, who do we serve? Who do we serve? You should start there. Who is our core customer? What do they look like? Hopefully, it looks a whole lot like this. And we have some of these that we can model after. Because these are the people we have the most capacity to serve well in the world. And if you don't have a good understanding of who your advocates are, that's your starting point. That's the tactic I want you to bring back to your businesses. Let's get an advocacy program together so we understand who are our best customers, the ones that care about us and are willing to invest in our future. And the way I figured this out, by the way, in the software world, is that no great software product ever has been built in the history of mankind without deep engagement from advocates, without a beta community that cares about the product, that gives you golden feedback, positive and negative, feedback that's actionable, that gives you ideas to improve the future of the product. These are all the things you get from an advocate. Ideas, feedback, right? Referrals. There'll be a reference for you. Every great product requires advocates to be successful, even yours. If you want to build a powerful business, that's the place to start. All right. Who do we serve? And who do we not serve? Because when you're super specific about it, you also exclude the people that you're not serving. Now, here's one of the things we produce as an artifact. Part of our culture. So these personas represent ITX's buyers, our typical buyers. We do a really high quality document that my people hang up in their cubes. So if you're in sales, you have these guys hanging up. If you're an architect, you have this hanging up. If you're an innovation lead, you have this guy hanging up. Like, this is our stereotypical customers, what they look like. And by the way, these are wrong. They are nowhere near accurate. Give it to you to look at. The point isn't to get them right. They're generalizations, so they can't be right. Like, there's no person that looks exactly like this, except for the guy who's probably. But the point isn't to get it right. The point is to create empathy on my team, so that my team is thinking about what do our customers want in a more powerful way, to cause more caring to occur. Back to my model, back to the tree, Jonathan. Causing more caring to occur in a more influential way. And the more we think about the customer, the more we put ourselves in the customer mindset when we're making decisions and solving problems, the more empathy we build, tactically. That's what I think personas are powerful for. And you'll see, we go into great depth to produce a great document. Any questions on that? It's part of our workshop process. It's one of the things we produce in that one day, and we mail this to them afterwards. They get it in the mail. It's like one of their first deliverables.
What are the disc on here?
Yeah, this profile. What do we expect him to be? And it will be wrong.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is to improve empathy, cause more caring to occur, become more influential with Arrow.
Are these available publicly?
No, they're unique to my business.
Of course.
Yeah, but you can do this for your business.
Well,
Actually, Eric, I think we promised this one to you. Your boss asked for it. Somebody.
Yes.
So you can take that one home with you. And you're welcome to take that one home if you want, Evan.
We're going to.
You guys can fight over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think David wanted
Those-
Yeah.
You each
Because they were
take half.
supposed to show up, but the box didn't show up at last.
The
Two didn't show up at the
Yeah.
session.
Those are for Hush.
All right,
I
now.
find that there are situations where there's like multiple different people who use.
Absolutely. So this is an example of that. That's my technical buyer. That's my user buyer. We also have a financial buyer, and we have Maya, who's like a nonprofit, because we do a lot of nonprofit work as well. So we have others. And the more work you do, the more powerful you'll become. It's about setting the context. And this is one of the artifacts we produce in our culture. It sets context for conversations. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's all about setting context for conversations, being more powerful with it. And again, it's not right, but it's better. It's much better than doing nothing. Because we cause more conversations to occur in a more powerful, high-quality way.
Are you gonna get into how you bootstrap this? Like, if you don't actually have?
We do that in 1 hour. So I've worked on those tools. Josh,
No, I
you're
mean, if
privy to
your
this.
business, like, if you don't know who your advocates are, if maybe you don't even have any people who look like the ones you wish you had,
Yeah.
are you gonna talk about that at all?
So all right, a little more context. We build these for every product that we deploy. So if we're gonna build a software product, I wanna know who it's for, right? So we go through a process where we identify the entire ecosystem of consumers and we try to get as specific as possible for the core users. We even prioritize the users. And every product has more than one. So the answer is yes. And you're never gonna get it right and you won't get it perfect. But even for a bespoke product where we don't know, we guess. Because that's better than doing nothing. We get the whole group aligned, confident, and committed that that's probably the most accurate we have with the knowledge we have today. With the knowledge we have today. Which means it's wrong. All models are wrong, some models are useful. So with that mindset, like let's keep making it better. But at least we got to start and we get some traction. Get moving. Make sense? All right, so that's who. And the better you do at understanding who you serve and knowing who you don't serve, the more powerful you will become. And you want to serve those who you have the most opportunity to produce an advocate from in your ecosystem. The better aligned you are to that, the more powerful you will be.
Emphasize who you don't serve, because I think that most of us miss that. How many of you know who you won't serve?
Here's one thing we all know. Who's your worst customer? You can probably all name who your worst customer is.
Probably by name.
Not the customer you want to be an advocate.
Right.
Not the person you want to focus on. Yet, they draw 80% of our energy. They draw 80% of our energy. We want to find the people that we can turn into advocates. And figure out how to minimize the people that we can't.
But do you have a profile of that person so you avoid them?
I do. Oh no, I don't. That's a good idea though. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Who's my
I do.
anti-advocate?
I have a type of customer I will not serve, even though I know that it's serviceable.
That's interesting. You know, I do too. And it's this, but I haven't ever taken the time to define that. It's the customer that I cannot turn into this, that I can't convert into
The
having this
reason
inspiring
you
time.
want that is if you were a hunter, and many of us are, and you're in business, but if you're a hunter, we will go after whales or porpoises, etc. But in thin times, we will go after rabbits. We will bring back a rabbit. And the rabbit is that bad customer. Okay, so you really have to have I believe you have to have a clear idea that there is a certain segment of your market that you just will not serve, and a certain type that you will not serve.
I think that's a great idea. And I'm certainly guilty of that, bringing back the rabbit sometimes.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean, as a hunter, I'm gonna bring something back. After a while, you know, I know I'm not supposed to bring back the squirrel, but I'm gonna capture something. Okay.
Lots of reasons to justify it.
And I'm gonna rationalize why.
They got money. They got
And,
great
well,
money.
not only that, but they're gonna grow.
It's the,
Inevitably, when I bring the squirrel, it has lots of offsprings, and it will grow into a big one. And maybe 1 out of every 1,000 that happens.
right.
So,
Good point. Hopefully we're not the squirrels.
That's gonna make
All right,
it,
so-
that's gonna make it into a future presentation.
But knowing who we don't serve is powerful. We know that. And I think by default we do that. Like you said though, when times are good, and then we ignore
well,
them
you
when
said
times
already,
get tough.
you almost automatically know that the RFP, since you've written some of them, you know that the RFP is not worth your time. You know that it's already rigged. In many industries, the RFP, the incumbent or the chosen person has already been done, written the RFP.
It's just a process.
And most of us have spent hours answering them only to find out, wake up one day that you don't want the RFP business, because most it'll be is the lowest price.
Right. Procurement driven. All right, so vision. A complete vision has 4 components. Knowing who we serve very clearly, knowing what problems we're solving very clearly, and what problems we're not solving. The better job we do, the more articulate we are with what we are solving and what we're not, the closer we can get to this advocate. Knowing why we differentiate. Why are we different than however they're solving the problem today? I don't like to use competitors or competitive analysis or comparisons, but why are we better than how they're solving this problem today? And how are we going to measure our success? How are we going to measure? Oh, here's a hint. Trust loyalty and advocacy. Now, a complete vision, again, knowing who we serve, what problems we solve, how we're differentiating, and why we're different. Notice that doesn't include any tactics in there. Nothing about capabilities. Nothing about the roadmap, the things we're going to do specifically to deploy to serve that vision. Those are different. Those are tactics. This is strategy. That's a complete vision. All right, now, the number one job of leaders, I believe, is to set the context, to set the vision through language. It's the only tool we have for who we're serving, what problems we're solving, why we're different, why we're better, how we're going to measure our success. That's your number one job for your team. Your second job is to make sure the team's motivated by that vision. Remember I promised I'd talk about motivation a little bit? And what do you do if you have people that aren't motivated? This is that part of the conversation. As a leader, if you have people on your team that aren't motivated by the vision that you are getting after together, it is your imperative to either change the vision so they are motivated. That should be your starting point. What am I doing wrong? What am I saying wrong? How am I leading wrong? What could I do better to get them signed up? That should be your first strategy. Your second strategy is to understand why they're not motivated. It could be a personal issue. It could be something going on in their lives. It's not a long-term problem. It's a short-term motivation problem. And how could you help them through that? You need to understand why your people are working, not just what they're working on. This is leadership. And ultimately, if you have people on your team that aren't motivated by your vision, and you can't make that shift occur for them, if you can't help them to make that shift occur authentically through self-determination theory, autonomy, competence, relatedness, I'll come back to that. There's a triangle. There's science behind this motivation thing. If you can't cause that to occur, either you suck as a leader, or you need to get them off the bus. You got to get them off the bus. Because you can't maximize the momentum defined as the ability of your products and services to create trust, loyalty, and advocacy in a powerful way, without the most motivated team. Put them in a role that they will be motivated by. Get them off your bus, put them on another bus, or get them off the bus entirely. Because they could be part of the 3 to 4% sociopathic. You gotta get them off the bus. Because you will never be able to maximize your momentum without maximizing motivation. Did I answer your question from earlier? Was it John? Did I answer your question from earlier? Okay. Third job of leadership. First job, get the vision right. Know who we're serving, what problems we're solving, why we're differentiated, how we're going to measure our success. Make sure your team's highly motivated, autonomously driven, connected to the purpose, competent. Then your job is to put the right butts in the right seats. Put the right butts in the right seats. Now, if you're a decent leader and you've done a good job at establishing a vision with your team collectively, motivating them towards that vision, and you got the right butts in the right seats, how much of the details do you have to manage? How much micromanagement do you have to do with your team? Very little. And if you have to get in the weeds, it's because you're screwing up something else upstream. If you're in the weeds micromanaging details, you got the wrong butts in the wrong seats, you have an unmotivated team, or you got the vision wrong. And I'll give you a tool. The next tool I'll give you is a way to diagnose that. All right, so your fourth job, the fourth job of leadership, is to monitor for waste. Monitor and coach out the waste so that you can maximize profit. Monitor for waste. I have a Hoshin star proof that I haven't been doing everywhere. Like this. Now, if you take these things, I'm going to give you a little tool set that you can use, you can take back to the business tomorrow and use to prioritize anything. It comes from Lean Six Sigma, but I can't find the source for it. I didn't invent it. It's called the Hoshin Star. We've been using it for years at ITX. It's super powerful. We use it actually to do two things. I sometimes use it to prioritize the people in our ecosystem so that we understand who's the most important. And I sometimes use it, we often, in every workshop, use it to map out our cascade of concerns. On Harold, you'll see we've got a cascade of concerns for him, where we've taken all the things we believe Harold cares about, all the problems we solve for him, and we've prioritized them. See that? See that? So this is the methodology we use for that, and we do it for every product that we build. And here's how the tool works. It's the most simple tool ever for leadership. Vision, motivation, capabilities, roadmap. Put a circle around them. Ask yourself, which drives which? And create the relationships between each one. Does vision drive motivation? Good vision drives motivating the team. Agreed? An understanding of our purpose, who we're serving, what problems we're solving, how we're going to measure our success, that will drive a stronger, more motivated team. It'll also drive what capability sets we need. It'll also drive what roadmap we should produce. Any arguments? Make sense? All right, watch. Motivation, having a motivated team will drive a clearer, more robust roadmap, tactical outputs. It'll also drive people learning on their own what capabilities need to be achieved to accomplish that vision. Roadmap are capabilities. This is the tough one. Having a stronger team will drive a stronger roadmap. That's my belief system. That's the way the arrows flow. In the context, at least, of building software products, and I think of every business, this is the way it flows. Now, if you count up the number of arrows coming out of each circle after you do this exercise, there's 3 arrows coming out of that, 2 arrows coming out of that, 1 arrow coming out of this, and 0 arrows coming out of that. This gives you a very clear cascade of leadership concerns. Establish the vision, motivate the team, find the right capabilities, put the right butts in the right seats, and you will get the most powerful tactical output. Cascade of leadership concerns. Right? That's why I draw it this way. So, number 1 job, establish your vision. Number 2 job, motivate. Number 3 job, put the right butts in the right seats, and then they'll get after the tactical outcomes.
Wait, what's the Hoshin Star? Is like the person that came up with that, or is it?
I didn't know that. It came from Lean Six Sigma. We learned it 20 years ago. I don't even remember where I learned it. But I've looked for the reference. I can't find a reference for it. There's other people that have written on it.
Toyota.
What's your definition of motivation, please?
My definition of motivation is not my definition. It comes from self-determination theory, and it is autonomy, competence, and relatedness. It's connecting people to purpose, making sure they're on a path to mastery and have the competence they need, and they're autonomously driven. That's how you know people are motivated. Self-determination theory. Is that fair?
Okay,
Okay. So, go ahead.
That's what leads to motivation.
Yeah. Okay, so you can look at the. I haven't never been asked that question, so you keep doing that to me. I think if you think about what my personal definition of motivation would be in terms of outcomes. So those are the inputs: autonomy, competence, relatedness. The outcomes I would see happening would be this manifesting in the world. So when you see this manifesting in the world, people are motivated towards some common goal. And ultimately, by the way, I have another deeper construct where I demonstrate how this overlays on that, causing more caring to occur, highly influential
And
ways.
what's the difference between motivation and, in this example, and alignment?
There's different types of motivation. The problem with motivation is,
Yeah, I don't think there is such a thing. I don't think you,
I
other
think
than
there'd be violence.
other than self-motivation, I personally do not believe you can motivate anybody.
No, you
I
can't.
believe what we do a great job of is we can demotivate people, but I don't think, other than self-motivation.
no, I don't
So it's
agree
either.
with you. I don't agree with you.
Some-
I think you can create the environment within which motivation can occur. You can't force motivation. You can force extrinsic motivation,
To make it necessary, yeah.
and that's a problem.
Right.
What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, if somebody pulls the fire alarm in the building right
You're
now, that's
motivated.
extrinsic motivation to
Yeah,
get
it
out of
sure
your seat.
is.
Yeah.
Safety.
Well, it makes, I think we believe, I'm confused between.
Yeah, the military does it all the
Yeah,
time.
motivation and alignment. I think what you're looking to, what you're calling motivation is really alignment, giving people an opportunity to line up.
Sure, creating the context for them to line up and
Yeah.
get after the same set of
Yeah.
goals.
I'm not sure, but.
I don't know, I don't completely agree that they're the same though. I think
They're not.
motivation
I agree with you.
is getting people to be excited about hitting goals, not just
Look,
all in
all right.
agreement about the goals.
Remember in the beginning, I said we get to choose as leaders how we use our words?
Words, right.
This is a great example of that.
Yeah, inspiration.
What you're using as motivation is very different from what Phil is using as motivation.
Inspiration.
It's very different, by the way, from what Maslow uses as motivation, from what self-determined. It's a word, just like any other word, that has really very subjective meaning until you sit down and take the time to define it. With the people that you care about defining it with.
Good point.
Is that fair? All right.
So basically what you're saying is that part of our leadership role is to, when we use these words, is to define them and make sure that we're all on the same page, which we don't do, by the
We
way.
don't do that.
Okay.
It's to agree on a common language.
Well, we agree. I put it in writing, and you should know what, and I give it in your writing, and then I tell you, and you should know exactly what I mean.
Or better, let's sit down and define it together.
Yeah. I'm teasing on that.
Yeah.
Because because we all have a different, I would use the word instead of motivation, which will work for the same as inspiration.
Yeah.
Inspiring something.
Move, touch, inspire, baby.
And because I've seen so many cases of demotivation.
Yeah.
That's what business is good at. We are very good at demotivating.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a 5-minute break before we actually.
I could skip a lot of this work.
So how
You
does,
could choose
so,
that.
We
So the
didn't
momentum
set out to
framework
press record.
is a set of words. It's a contextual model, a tool that is applicable tomorrow that you can go and deploy that will cause all of that will help you cause all of this to occur.
Got it.
It's an understanding of how business works. You have inputs, you have outputs, you have a strategy, you have tactics. Each of you have a different subset of those functions. But the goals are the same, to cause inspiration to occur. The goal is to create trust, loyalty, and advocacy, and be purposeful of those words. This framework will help you do that. It's part of
I think one thing that's kind of interesting is that most of us in the business community have lived under a theory that is shareholder value that you create.
Keynesian economics, right?
Okay, and it's been only recently, okay, this work parallels it, that says there's something more than just the profit and the shareholder, the good in the community. And you're gonna see, I believe, more and more of this. Business has shifted, one, because of the political climate, but two, because that has not met all the aspirations that people have when you go into business, and particularly the millennium. So the basis of this, which is independent of that,
Conscious
is
capitalism.
we're seeing, you would not have had this kind of leadership talking about the greater good resonate as much as it is in the last 5 years. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. And I think it's resonating because it's right.
Yeah.
And it works. And this is why it works. Right? And I think the internet has played a huge role in causing this change to occur for the world.
Really? Why? How do you feel that?
Because of the transmission of knowledge and ideas and the ability to go find other work that's meaningful. And the generations the generations below us care about this concept of meaning more than any generation before us.
I think it's,
It's because the world, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Because I believe the world is evolving in this way. Like right now, we live in a world of abundance. Like there's no wars going on. For the first time in history, in recorded history of mankind, there's no wars going on.
That's not true.
There's
not true.
There's no major wars between nations going on in the world today. There's no like.
There's no cyber war going on. I mean, we've moved what the war is.
Well, you could change the definition of war and then say there's a war going on. We could do that for sure. There's always going to be bad things in the world. There's always risks to manage. There's always bad people. But the bad people are being called out more and more frequently. Bad behaviors are being less and less tolerated. The world is moving towards a better place. We're a long ways to go. Hundreds of years to go.
I think the analogy of your $75,000, I think what has happened, there was a singer, Sarah Lee, who used to say, is that all there is? And I think we have reached, as a business and a community, and the United States in particular, a level in which we have a luxury,
We
frankly,
have the luxury.
of frankly thinking beyond it. And once you get beyond the profit and the capitalism and how good we have it, you can take a look and say, is that all there is? And there's more.
So we're in an unprecedented time in history where that's a possibility.
I don't think that applies to publicly traded companies. It might be private equity that they can look to the long term. But the public ones that they're so focused on the next quarter, I don't think.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think that's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I think the world will change.
And
It will change. It will
fortunately
continue
for
to
us,
change.
in this room and for Vistage, we were in that private enterprise zone, which is what's driving the economy with it, despite,
Not today, maybe, but.
Yeah.
well, today a virus, and a Saudi dictator with the oil prices driving it, but that won't be forever. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. This is a good conversation. And by the way, I think you're both spot on and right. I mean, the world is, and we all have our views of the world. We got to make it work for ourselves. All right, but anyway.
Can I ask you one question
Yeah.
as you go, because I know we have enough. What's the most tactical thing a person could bring back?
From the whole day?
Yeah, or impactful, tactical, yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, let's stop for a second and let's just ask that question.
Okay.
Have you guys gotten value out of the work so far? What's the most tactical thing you can bring back right now?
For
And I'm not done
impactful.
yet.
Maybe impact.
What's your answer?
Clear vision for me.
Clarifying the vision. That would be useful for you. How are you do it? How are you going to do it?
I'm still processing. I'm not quite there yet, because I'm currently with the business that we're in. We're constantly, there's a lot of existential factors that are influencing everything. So I do know what our purpose is, but the vision is not.
Good. So that's tactical. How about you?
I think the pretty solid vision. I would say motivation. The tactics of getting the team motivated, ensuring that they're motivated, practicing that. That's probably what I focus on.
All right.
Without a doubt, I want to go back and map our clients across trust, loyalty, and advocacy.
That's powerful. Good.
I think we have a really good and powerful why and meaning behind what we do. I don't think we explain that well to our employees.
Good. So be more articulate with your vision, so it becomes more powerful. The words. Love that. How about you?
I think we have fragments of a vision, but it isn't clearly defined that in a motivational way. I think that probably the most tactical, useful thing will actually be kind of more what Jill was talking about, which is understanding our advocates.
Understand your advocates. Okay. Good. Rebecca?
I would say motivation. I think just in the past 2 days, our business has changed dramatically. It's going to be tricky.
Worse, where it gets better.
Yeah, and just trying to keep people motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't say.
I'm fortunate that I have two people that can think about it.
What hit you though? Been around.
The fact that we don't articulate that vision enough, it's definitely there. We don't say thank you enough either.
Well, this is part of an advocacy strategy.
Yep.
Starting with recognizing who are our advocates. And how would we know that? So once you've identified them, you need to take care of it, nurture them. Say thank you.
Jonathan, one more, can I ask one more? Jonathan?
Sure,
You had
I
two.
love this framework, momentum framework. I think it makes total sense, and I would, just from my experience, where I kind of drop the ball, is connecting the vision and the motivation, that top strategy layer, doing that.
Thank you.
How about you, Phil?
I think mine is the whole subject of leadership. How absolutely ubiquitous the definitions are, and how much work it is to be a true leader.
Hard for
How easy it is for anybody in this room to be a manager, okay, and most of us are not great managers. But the next step of actually being a leader requires a tremendous amount of work, and at that point, for leadership, you need the models. You know,
They help you.
They
They'll
help you.
The
They help
leaders
you.
are already doing all this
Yeah.
stuff. I'm not showing you anything that's new.
But it's,
You all know all this stuff. This just gives you a clear way to express it and to be more powerful with it and to amplify it.
leadership's an activity. And,
Can I share now?
yeah,
I've learned two things today that have been really valuable already for me to use in the future. One is, I just figured this out. Like, figuring out who your advocates are is really, like, this tie, I figured it out on the fly, because I've been thinking about it a lot. Tying who you can serve to who you should be serving, and having that be, like, the people that you have the most capability for producing advocates, that's brand new, I just came up with that. I learned that today, just from some of the conversations we've been having.
We won't charge it.
Yeah.
what's the second?
It just slipped my mind. Oh,
You can't
this concept, this
can't give
concept.
us 2 points to
You
give us
just
a.
said it, management, and I have to capture this, Josh, you can take notes on these two things. Oh, you got it on video.
There's a lot of video, I'm gonna write it down.
Management is easier than leadership. So we often default, because here's the thing, we need to see how our work is improving the world. And when we manage, we can see our work demonstrated through competence. It's a motivating factor for us. So we default to this because these are easier things to measure and see our results in real time. Look, I made that sale occur. I got more leads in the funnel. It's easier. This is harder. Leadership is harder. So what you just said is that we manage well, but we don't often lead well. Because we don't often distinguish between the two. So this is a clear way of distinguishing between what is leadership, what is management.
Very good.
So I learned that today. So thank you for that.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that wasn't an interruption. All right, ready for the next model? Okay, the math looks like this. Strategy without tactics is the slowest path to victory, meaning your competitors will get there first. So strategy without tactics, slowest path to victory. Tactics without strategy is the clanking of swords you hear right before defeat. Who said that? Strategy without tactics, slowest path to victory.
I'm not allowed to answer.
Tactics without strategy, that's the clanking of swords you hear right before defeat. 3,500 years ago, Sun Tzu wrote that. What's that?
Alexander the Great.
Sun Tzu wrote that in The Art of War. They teach it like military leadership still today. Strategy without tactics, slowest path to victory. Tactics without strategy, clanking of swords you hear it before the enemy climbs over the wall, stabs you in the heart. You need both. Not one or the other. You need both to maximize momentum. Momentum defined as the ability of your products or services to cause trust, loyalty, or advocacy to occur in a positive way, to build relationships. Trust, loyalty, and advocacy, that loyalty ladder, is a very clear proxy for relationships. For how do we build relationships with our customers, our vendors, our employees, the people that our business serves. That's my definition of momentum. And this is where it comes from. It comes from having a clear strategy and clear tactics. What if either one of those is 0? You get 0 momentum. Basic math, right? If they're nonlinear equations and they can't be negative, I mean, you could theoretically have negative tactics or negative, but you're not going to be in business for very long. So they're both, it's a positive sum function, nonlinear equation. Strategy has 2 components to it. Strategy is the product of, mathematical terms here, it is the product of having a clear vision and having a a motivated team to achieve it. Because the other thing that Sun Tzu said in his book is that I don't care how clear you think your vision is or where you're going, if you don't have a team to back you up, where are you going? Where are you really going? The same operates in our businesses more so today than ever before. More so today than ever before. Clear vision and a motivated team maximizes strategy. And if either one of them is zero, how much strategy do you have? None. That's why you gotta make sure your vision's clear, articulated, powerful. Then you get after motivating the team. And you can achieve some success with weak vision and weak motivation. You have to have some. They have to be slightly positive or you're not gonna get anywhere. Okay? Now, tactics are the combination of, you can probably guess at this point where I'm going with this. Tactics are the combination of having a clear roadmap and the capabilities to achieve it. Okay? And if either one of those is zero, what are your tactics? Zero. You can change the order of these. It's mathematical, so it's distributive. So you can change the order and you still get the same result. Doesn't matter. But the result is a maximization in momentum. It's a nonlinear equation of maximization formula. It works. If you had a way to measure how clear your vision was, how articulate it was, by the way, if you had a metric for trust, loyalty, and advocacy and through behaviors, you could measure vision. If you had a way to measure motivation through autonomy, competence, and relatedness, you could put that into the formula and determine how much momentum you have. If you had a way to measure the clarity of your tactical output and how capable your team was, it's a mathematical formula. Make sense? All right, now, if your vision's weak, even if your team's highly motivated, remember earlier I promised you a diagnostic framework? This is the diagnostic framework for leadership. And the road is clear. You can see where you're or how to get there. And you have a highly capable team, but you're not maximizing momentum because your vision's weak. It manifests as confusion. Confusion about who we're serving, what problems we're solving, this is how you work backwards, why we're differentiated, and how we're going to measure our success. You don't maximize the vision, you don't maximize momentum if you're not maximizing those things. Okay, if the vision's clear, but your team's not motivated, we talked about this a lot earlier, it doesn't result in momentum, it results in apathy or resistance, or worse, over time, burnout. Burnout. Team's not motivated, results in burnout. All right. It could mean that your vision's weak, and you got to go back and work on that. This is always the starting point. What am I doing wrong as a leader to set the vision? Are we clear about who we're serving, who we're not serving, what problems we're solving, what problems we're not solving, how we're measuring success? Are we clear about that? Do we know it matters? If we think we've got that right and it's only one or two people on our team that aren't motivated by it, we've got to get them off the bus or figure out what's not motivated, what's demotivated. Got to figure that out. Get them off the bus or put them on another bus. Okay. If the roadmap is clear, so the vision's clear, the team's hyper-motivated. One team, one dream. We're all going in the right direction. But the roadmap is not clear. Like I said earlier, it manifests as waste. And we've got to be on the lookout for that, because that disrupts our profitability, which gives us less choices in the future. All right, if the vision's clear, your team's really motivated, not only one team, one dream, they can see where they're going, they can see how they're going to get there, they see the yellow brick road, but we're hamstringing them by not giving them the tools they need, the training they need, the knowledge they need, with the wrong butts in the wrong seats. Our capabilities are weak. We don't have the right equipment. Whatever that means in our business, it manifests as frustration with a capital F. Frustration. So this is a diagnostic framework. We have a little workshop we run at ITX called the Breakdown Breakthrough Workshop. Whenever we see something off track, we diagnose and we work backwards. And it's a game of whack-a-mole. You will never fully maximize momentum in your businesses. You've got to come to terms with that. That's what leadership is about. You'll never maximize the amount of momentum that you can create. You get up every morning and you have to figure out what is the most powerful thing I can be using my time for, using my mind for. And figure out what are the pieces, which one can I have the most impact on today, and get after that. And you're never done. It's a game of whack-a-mole. If you've been in business long enough, you know that this is the truth. This is just the truth. Any questions about the math? So if you're thinking about the question I got in your group about, oh, one could be negative. They really can't. It's a non-linear equation, and you could do integrals on it. If you could actually plot it on a chart if you had a metric for each of these things. But if any one of them is negative, you're not going to be in business very long. They're all positive non-linear equations. And I can prove that too. I can prove it through an integral proof.
But one of the questions here is it one, how often is it just one thing that's, suboptimal?
Never. They're all suboptimal all the time.
Right.
So you have to figure out which one is the most suboptimal right now and work on that. They're all, you can't optimize any one of them. You can always get clearer about each, you can always get better at each one of these, especially this one. I think this one is the hardest. I think this motivation thing is the hardest one for business leaders to optimize. It's very hard. Like, you can optimize and become really efficient at your roadmaps. You can have a clear vision, but it's hard to get to really optimize motivation.
Because really, you can do almost all the other things yourself. You can come up with a great vision. You can come up with a great roadmap. You can hire people with capabilities. But you can't will them to be motivated directly. You have to do it indirectly, right? Like that's
You got to create the context for them to be motivated. Right?
That takes
you can't
time,
force motivation.
faith, and it's not easy.
We think we can, and that's why we use monetary incentives in a lot of cases, because we think we can. We believe that we can, but we can't. When we make that flip to believing that we can't, we have to create the context for it to occur. That's when we start to become powerful leaders. Did I do the flip for you? I didn't do the flip.
No,
Want
I'm
see the
eager to
flip?
see it, yeah.
I don't have much time, but I do have a meeting after this. And I want to get to trust. So I'll do it super fast. So self-determination theory. Let's talk about motivation because that seems to be a big theme today. Self-determination theory is the science, it's the current de facto modern science behind human intrinsic motivation. All motivation, actually. All right, self-determination theory. And it's written by, there's a bunch of books you can read on it. The easiest one to read is written by Daniel Pink. It's called Drive. So Drive by Daniel Pink. But the theory was created by two gentlemen, Ed Deasy and Richard Ryan. And if you search Google Scholar, which is the largest academic social repository on the planet now, and Rich Ryan, you'll find 60-some-odd thousand research papers that have been written on it since their seminal paper that refer back to it. And so far, no one's proven it wrong. There's only lots of research that's been done to support the theory.
Do you remember what the seminal paper was?
Self-determination theory.
Oh.
Google it. Find it.
Pretty self-explanatory.
The research looks like, they wrote a book called, Ed wrote a book himself that's pretty accessible. It's called Why We Do What We Do. So I highly recommend you read that. It's a short read, it's easy. They also wrote the book, The Self-Determination Theory Handbook, which is like an academic Bible that I don't recommend you read. But it's got all the evidence behind why it works from their academic research. All right, and they say there are three things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. But these are the things, if you can move the needle on these three factors, you're going to get people independently, self-determined to accomplish this goal. And it's hard work. Autonomy is, I believe, this is where the flip comes in. I'll show you. You haven't seen this one either yet, Josh.
I'm about to.
Another new model for you. Apologize. This is what gets people up in the morning. So feeling the sense of safety and control. So safety and control is where autonomy comes from. And extrinsic motivators have a demotivating effect. Because when people feel like they're being manipulated or controlled, autonomy gets shut down. They did a study, there's a bunch of old people in nursing homes for various reasons, and they did a really broad-based study, like a statistically significant study on these folks in assisted care living homes. All they did was they put plants in their rooms in this study. Put plants in their rooms, and for half the group, they told them, don't touch the plants. The staff will take care of the plant. In the other half of the rooms, the other half of the patients, they said, here's your plan. And the staff helped them and assisted them, but it was their plan. That's like the control group. That's the only thing they changed in this study. And everything else, controlled for age, controlled for pre-existing disorders, all sorts of things. Very, very statistically significant finding came out of this research. It's a longitudinal study. The people who felt like they couldn't touch their plants, they had no control over those plants, died earlier. That's how important control and autonomy is to us. Feeling like we have some sort of control over our environment. And I believe it goes back, this psychological safety is an underpinning of that. Like we biologically feel like we're threatened when we have control taken away from us. It's super important. So the more control you perceive to have, that you have, the more motivated you'll be in all sorts of contexts of your life. The same applies to your people. The more you control them, the less intrinsic motivation you're going to get out of them. That is a scientific fact.
I had a, I guess you'd say a course from Harvard that really analyzed, and I forgot the name of the hotel chain in India, where they had a manual for their employees that went down to the most finite detail of how they were going to interact and what their job was going to be. But the one thing that they said you had complete autonomy was make that guest's experience better. They had the most incredible results.
Because of that one little
The one little thing that they could.
That's the one variable.
Yeah, but it was a major variable.
Yeah, it's a major variable. You will get what you measure. So if it's experience you care about, and you give them autonomy over that, and then you measure the result, trust, loyalty, advocacy, watch what happens. They can see the results of their work.
But on one hand, you feel so restrained. They were talking about Indians, it's right to say, like to get in people's space. They like to get very close. And it was very specific. Meeting a guest, keep your distance. Don't get close. I mean, it was to that detail that they really laid out how to respond. And yet, to me, that's an awful lot when you get down to that granular restriction. But yet, the one thing is very difficult to say, just make their experience different in memory. It's
No, that's interesting. And I think there's a balance you have to find behind what you know is a best practice today, to use your language from earlier, from what you know is a best practice that works, things that work, and where you're going to give people control. But it's about this perception of control too. Perception is a big part of it. How much control do I feel like I have over my work and my output? And if you have shared goals, so, all right, here's another model for you. Call this the continuous innovation model. If you think about over time, as a function of leadership, let me step back a little so you can see this better. As a function of leadership, our goal, so now we're all on the same page, right? We believe that the goal of leadership is to create momentum expressed as trust, loyalty, and advocacy, increasing in a measurable way. That's how I define momentum. Now, if you keep operating your business as usual, or in the words of Grace Murray Hopper, the most dangerous phrase in business. Grace Murray Hopper, you guys know who she is? One of the first female programmers on the ENIAC, brilliant woman. Also the first U.S. Navy admiral that was a woman. She's long dead, but we have a conference room at ITX named after her. Brilliant woman. She has this great quote: "The most dangerous phrase in business. This is how we've always done it around here."
Yep.
Yeah, we know that. All right. Trust, loyalty, and advocacy is the goal. We create this open awareness, what Daniel Goleman calls open awareness. Now, if we're a good leader, we think of an idea. An idea is useless to a business. It's useless. Ideas are cheap. Lots of us have them. It's useless until it becomes a tactic that you deploy that causes some change in the world. Trust, loyalty, or advocacy to go up. If you're a good leader, you come up with an idea. Hey, what if we tried using this language at the hotel front desk? Or what if we tried giving a little gift or doing this? Like, you come up with a tactic and you try it and you see, oh, this caused an increase in the relationship I was able to build with that consumer. An idea. Ideas are useless until they become tactics that cause inspiration to occur. Trust, loyalty, or advocacy going up. I call that an innovation. That's an innovation. An innovation is a tactic that you deploy that causes a change, a measurable change in trust, loyalty, or advocacy. Fair? All right. If you're a really good leader, you'll have another idea at some point in the future. Right? You're going to have all these ideas. You're going to cause this change to occur. But if you're a great leader, you have a team of people, and you've created open awareness around what's important, which is building relationships with your consumers and your people and your colleagues around you. And they'll come up with all kinds of little micro innovations, some of them small, some of them big. They'll come up with them because you're leading them powerfully. And this is the environment we want to create. I call this continuous innovation. Does that make sense? That's why this stuff is important. And that's how you maximize the value, long-term value of a business. Because you get a team of people that's constantly thinking about how do we do this better. That's leadership.
You know, the comment was made, and I guess in choice of words, one of the best practices. To me, best practices just make you average. I would think that...
The best practices you know of today. And you're right.
I'm much more interested. I think when you see something like this, it's the next practice. I like the next practice is much better than best. What are the next practices you're going to put into effect? The movie or all of it. Best practices really simply mean that you'll be...
All right, any more questions so far? How you guys doing? How's the energy level? No? Ready? Keep going? All right.
Because you're bound in time, right?
I am, a little bit. All right, so autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So scientists, so this is the thing about safety and control. Competence is about mastery. It's about mastery and the path to mastery, like growth. It's about mastery and growth. If you don't feel, Carol Dweck, if you feel like your intelligence is fixed and you can't learn this thing, you're not going to be motivated to go do that thing. So this whole growth mindset is a really important, so believing that you can and also growing. This is what competence is about. It's about people it goes back to Maslow's self-esteem thing. Like, people need to feel like they're growing and they're also contributing to the growth of others. And that's where relatedness comes in. So it's about mastery and growth. And relatedness is about purpose. So in Daniel Pink's book, he took self-determination theory, sat down with that DC Richard Ryan, interviewed him, and wrote a very accessible New York Times best-selling book called Drive. So if you want to learn about this, read the book Drive. It's got some good stories in there, it's pretty cool. But the concept is around safety and control, mastery and growth, and then purpose. And it turns out, if you read any of the great leaders, thinkers about in motivation or positive psychology, you will find that they all say the same thing. Purpose is always, in context, is always about how you're solving problems for other people. Viktor Frankl showed this in the concentration camps during World War II because he survived them. And he studied, as a psychologist, he studied people and came up with his theories in the concentration camps as a suffering member of that ecosystem. Freud stumbled on this. Maslow stumbled on this with self-actualization later in his career. And self-determination theory has proven it with lots of research. When we can see how we're solving problems for other people, that becomes a part of our purpose. this is how I motivate people. I've got a couple of other analogies. I'm not going to go into those for the sake of time. Now, this is for an individual. This is to motivate a person. And these things are important. And you remember when I did the Ocean Star earlier? Okay. If we were to take this model, and this is my addition to the thing, so it's me just making this shit up at this point. Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. If we were to Ocean Star this for I, this is the way I believe it works for most people most of the time. Autonomy and safety and control drives my desire to learn and grow, and it also drives my connection to any purpose. I'm not going to be connected to any purpose that someone else is unless I choose to. Autonomy drives that. You guys feel that way? That's accurate? The competence that I have is another fundamental motivator. My feeling of being on a path to growing and learning is a driver of being connected to purpose as well. So there's an order to this. 2, 1, 0. Arrows coming out. Remember, Ocean Star. So autonomy drives competence, drives relatedness for a person, for every person in your ecosystem, all the people that you lead, including yourself. And you need to recognize that there's that cascade. Safety and control first, then help build their competence so they can become better and feel better and contribute more. Then think about how they're connected to the purpose. Now, this flips when you think about it from a we perspective. So if you think about how you're going to motivate a team, a group of people, it manifests slightly differently. The same theory applies, the same science applies, but the order in which it applies flips. When we flip to the we context, we versus I, watch what happens. The purpose, a powerful purpose will drive action. Committed, autonomous action. A powerful purpose will drive people to go get the competence they need to achieve that purpose together and to divvy up the work, to specialize. Competence will drive autonomy, autonomous action. Being more competent will drive more autonomous action. It's the opposite. So for a group of people, I use different words, and I just went through a process with the people from the selfdeterminationtheory.org leadership team, and it was a really powerful conversation. Here's how it manifests for a group. Alignment of a group of people, confidence, and commitment. So for a group of people, you want to achieve alignment around a shared purpose, confidence in each other that they can achieve that goal, and a commitment to achieving that goal together. Commitment to autonomous action. And when this flip occurs, that is the function of leadership. To cause that flip to occur. And these are all tools that will help you do that. This is the science of human motivation. This is another thing you can take away and go learn and put into use tomorrow. The flip. This is not published yet, by the way. You haven't seen this one.
No, but I like it. Here's the question. So if you accomplish, how are they related?
So this never goes away for each person as they move about the world. This never goes away. So as great leaders recognize this and support this for each person and their individual contributions to the greater we. But we get people signed up for this together. Alignment, confidence, commitment. Those are your 3 keywords. Alignment, confidence, commitment towards any action. Then you know the team is intrinsically motivated together.
As opposed to...
I've actually created a survey instrument that measures how aligned, confident, and committed are we to our, where's my framework? To our vision, our roadmap, and our capabilities. To the other 3 quadrants in the model. Do we have the right team? Are we confident we have the right team? Are you confident in your skills to contribute? Do we have the right vision? Are you confident in that vision? And are you confident in the roadmap? Are you aligned with this vision? Aligned with this roadmap? Aligned with it, right? So, and if you don't think it's right, then let's work on that. So if we measure that in a pulse, in a safe way, so that people don't see individual answers, but they see the aggregate of the team, You can start influencing the conversations that occur, the quality of the conversations and the quantity of the conversations that occur, to cause more caring to occur. You know what I'm saying? It all plays into it itself. So there is an instrument that I'm working on to cause the flip to occur, at least to bring it into awareness for the team. And I'm working on it with the self-determination theory.
Does the organizational, you're describing it as a flip, but does the organizational focus lead to the individual motivation, the intrinsic motivation?
It could. It should.
How?
Through language, through words and mantras and values and stories and lore and brand and symbols and conversations. Through context. It's hard work, man. You're never done. All right, we gotta do trust. Can we do trust?
Yeah.
All right, let's do trust. All right, so I want you guys, in your folders, there's a workbook called Trust. It's got two hands holding. It's like this. I'm gonna take it out
You're first.
and flip it open to the first page, like this.
Did you get a screen wipe yet? That's my gift to you.
Show it to me. Looks like this.
GBC.
There's one for loyalty, there's one for advocacy. We're just gonna work on trust today. Everybody got it? Flipped it open? First page. I'm gonna give you 60 seconds. Flip it over. There you go. 60 seconds. I want you to write down your definition of trust. Go. You can do this again? Yeah, you need one? What? Let's see.
I already know what it is. I'll say it the same.
All right. What did you write? Here's the deal for this exercise. Only read the words you wrote, don't explain it. Just read it.
Without question.
Without question. John. You've done this before, so.
Yeah, no, I actually, but I stuck with what I had. The confidence that the other has my interest in.
Good. My interest.
Mutual understanding and confidence of that.
Confidence in acts, mutual understanding. Eric.
Almost verbatim. Faith others will act with my interests in mind instead of heart.
What do you mean? Almost
That
verbatim.
was what John said.
Faith in others.
Faith in
Please
others.
use the word faith. How about you?
Felt honesty, sincerity, and authenticity.
Sincerity and authenticity. Felt. That's a key addition to the lexicon. All right, Jill.
Confidence in something or someone.
Confidence in something or someone. Very simple. Powerful. Later.
Confidence that you know the true motivations of others and that those align with your interests.
Align with your interests and use motivation of others. It's interesting. Rebecca.
A person or organization that shows accountability is reliable, honest, and dependable.
So in person, you just find it specifically as a person or organization. Dependable, reliable, some good words in there. Phil, you want to state yours?
Yeah, being in safe hands.
Being in safe hands.
With all safe.
All right. So I've done this exercise hundreds and hundreds of times now in the course of the last 20 years since I came up with it many, many moons ago. And I always get the same result. There are similarities, for sure. You guys both use the word confidence. There's similarities, but they're all different. They're all very different. Like the word faith is unique. You're the only one that had that word in your definition. And whose was wrong? Somebody in the room always does that. It's usually the sociopath. Just kidding. No, whose was wrong? Nobody's was wrong. They're all right. this is the definition of subjectivity, which goes back to creating context. If we don't take the time to purposefully define this word that we know is important, then we can't possibly measure it ever. Because trust, it's your definition of trust, and it's right. So you have to take the time as a leader to objectify the word, like separate yourself from the word and make it useful. So I've done the homework for you on the next page or the third page. I've gone through like a gazillion dictionaries, looked at all the definitions, and I've sucked out the most simple definition I could find, which was almost identical to Jill's. Good job. We get a prize. It's one in which confidence is placed. Trust. One in which confidence is placed. One in which confidence is placed. We can measure that. How? How would we measure that?
You could look for.
How can you measure behaviors to indicate confidence? Right.
Right, like, well, I mean,
Like
giving,
what?
giving you, getting money, like, that's.
You could
that's
measure
a
money.
vote of confidence.
You could measure money. I'm gonna stamp that one out now, though. And you haven't seen this model. This is a mathematical proof. This is a mathematical proof for why you should never measure money as a North Star metric. You should measure it to make a profit. You should definitely measure it in terms of efficiency and management. But to just measure it as your trust metric is a problem. And here's why. And I'm going to use loyalty as the example that I told you I would earlier. If you were to draw a curve that showed how loyal, if you had a metric for it, if you had a good metric for loyalty, how many people will we consider loyal through behaviors? And we had behavioral metrics, and we were actually measuring those behaviors through time. It would look something like this. Agreed? And it would be a smooth curve because it takes time, a long time to earn loyalty. We measured all these behaviors over time. This is what it would look like. Now, if you had an actual function for that, it's a function of experiences over time. Agreed? It's a function of actual experiences over time. So, function of experiences over time gives us loyalty. So loyalty is a mathematical construct. Looks like this. It's a function of experiences over time. Right? It's a function of a bunch of experiences there. So it'd be some nonlinear equation that moves in a positive direction. Hopefully. Unless we have a sinking business. Now, if you were to take the integral of that, what would it give you? Calculus is the language of change. Calculus is the study of change. Isaac Newton came up with it many, many moons ago. And it works in our context. So how would it change over time? How would you measure, or what would the integral give you? That money doesn't give you. It's the area under the curve, guys. All right, area under the curve. It's the cumulative amount of time that the customer has spent engaging with your business in some way. Now here's what happens. If we only measure money in our business, if we say, well, they keep buying from us, so they must be loyal. What happens is we get lazy and we ignore them. And we pay attention to the people that aren't customers yet or the ones that are unhappy. And we ignore all the ones in the middle that are engaging on a regular basis because they keep buying from us. And we stop paying attention to them. If we measure loyalty as engagement and it becomes a North Star metric, it becomes one of our North Star metrics, we'll start paying attention to the engagements and the quality of the engagements that occur throughout the course of doing business with us. Jonathan, you're struggling with it a little bit.
Well, so I mean, like I've been in a bunch of businesses where engagement in some instances was bad. So like we were.
Because they're negative engagements or they're unexpected engagements. It's
Well,
about
no,
the
it wasn't
quality of the engagement.
It wasn't even that. It was so we were sort of like a health club. We were serving local businesses. We did advertising for local businesses. What we found was when they would log into our platform a lot, that was actually strongly indicative of the fact that they were questioning the results. And so it was negatively correlated with their retention. Whereas those who were happy tended to be happy and not tell us and not engage. And so it was.
So
very,
what should
very
the
hard
tactic
to-
be there? This is awesome.
What was
So
that?
what should the tactic be there? They're logging in a lot, which means they care about the results. So what should the tactic be there?
Reach out to them more, improve the results.
No. The tactic should be, These are people that are highly engaged, but they're probably on this decline right here. Because they don't understand yet that exercise isn't something you see a result from in a week or 2 weeks. Exercise is something that takes, it's like brushing your teeth. You don't not get cavities because you brush your teeth once. You gotta brush your teeth for years to get the results of that work. The same thing works with exercise.
It took multiple
They're gonna be
donuts.
on these declines at periods of time. And it's your job as the leader to recognize when they're on this decline and figure out what is the tactic that's gonna get them sustainable results from the business that we're in together. And in this case, they're in the gym business. They gotta take the stairs every day. It's not just once. He's got me taking the stairs in my 9-story office.
It wasn't one donut that got you to where you need to go to the gym.
Right, but the goal
Yeah.
is-
Exactly.
No, I mean, I get that part.
Yeah,
The
so-
question is, how do you measure the loyalty without?
Just the way you did. At least you're measuring engagement. They're coming in, they're logging in, they're paying attention. You're still getting this experience. It's your job to make it valuable to
But
them.
those who aren't logging in are actually the most loyal, I guess, or the most like revenue
No,
loyal
so
over time.
so I think in this case, I think you have two demographics. You have two personas. And you don't understand them well enough. You haven't segmented them well enough. And you need to segment them and figure out the ones that are logging in a lot probably have this, are this demographic and they have these problems that we're helping them solve. And this demographic has a different set of needs and wants and problems that you're solving for them. And the better job you do of segmenting them out, understanding them, and having a different strategy for each one, and a different set of tactics for each one, the more powerful you'll be. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So it's about knowing your who, or your collection of who's, because we all have more than one set of people that we solve problems for. Anybody else struggling with that? All right. If you just measure dollars, and this is particularly useful in your space, like if you just measure dollars, like I had a gym membership as a Planet Fitness up in Webster for almost 7 months. In the beginning, my buddy and I were going, so I was going there with him. So I was going almost every day. Something happened, he had to move to Florida, I stopped going. I kept paying for 6 months. If you were just measuring the fact that I'm continuing to pay, I stopped going to the gym. I started working out at home, working out at the office, other places. Doesn't mean I stopped working out, I'm just not loyal to you. And they never took the time to build a relationship with me. Because if they had known that, they could have at least tried to get someone in that office to engage with me, to maybe pair me up with other people, pair me up with a coach, do something to get me engaged. See where I'm going with that? And they may not have been able to change my behavior, but that's leadership. It's figuring that out. All right. That's my loyalty proof.
Okay.
That's a proof for engagement and experiences over time.
All right.
What?
Nope, I'm good.
Loyalty. So trust works in much the same way, except I think it happens in a little shorter time frame over time. Same concept, same concept here, except it's not. So trust starts with, it always starts at 0. If you don't believe me, I can prove it to you. We don't trust something until we have a reason to trust it. Some people say they're naturally trusting. I think that's bullshit. Like, we don't trust it until we have a reason to trust it. And if you think about it in the context of your business, if they've never heard of you before, what are 2 of the most common ways they might hear of you? One would be an ad. Let's say you do an advertisement, and you earn some trust because it's a good ad, gets their attention, right? What's a better way to hear about you?
Recommendation, word of mouth.
Give me another word for that.
Referral.
Another word.
An advocate.
An advocate. I got a guy. Come on, guys. Someone who invests in my future tells me about, right? Mm-hmm. That's the most powerful way to earn trust in the first relationship, or in the first experience. This is experience 0. What happens afterwards? Does it keep going up naturally? Does it go down?
Depends on how you treat them.
Depends on experience, right?
Well, they just heard about you. Does it keep going up after they hear about you? No. It's flat. It's a step function. Until what happens? Another experience. Right? Maybe I heard about them from a friend. Maybe I went and checked out their website. It looks pretty good. They look for real. Nothing happens for a while. and think about you again in some context. Or maybe they hear about you from another advocate, even more powerful. The point is, it works like this. And the only way trust is earned, ever, in the history of mankind, is through experiences. It's the only way. It's the only way you can earn trust, is when there's an experience that occurs for a person. Agreed? There's no other factors. Like you send them an email, you pick up the phone and call them, they meet with a rep, they visit your website. It's some sort of experience that happens. All right, so we want to get to this threshold, this trust threshold, where we're going to measure trust. The trust KPI. Do it this way. We want to get there as fast as possible. The job of leadership is to figure out how do we condense the amount of time it takes us to get there. How do we do that? How do we condense? What are a couple different strategies for getting there faster? Let's ask the marketers. How do you get there faster?
And we usually have user reviews or some sort of engagement that you can see the conversation. So you essentially get advocates.
That's ideal. Get advocates to create experiences for the other consumers or other prospects.
Right, but it becomes a recommendation. In my case, it's a product recommendation.
Okay.
So like frequency would be, is that what you're looking
Frequency, yeah, that's what we work. Two different strategies here. One strategy is to increase the number of experiences. E1/2, E1.5. In our world, we sometimes call that spam. But that's one strategy.
for? But it's possible to have negative experiences, so if I get a bunch of spam from a company, I'm gonna
Daniel
reduce-
Kahneman actually proved the earlier in the relationship, the more negative the experience is. If they have a bad experience, the more impactful it is on trust. The earlier it is. The more you build up, the more opportunities you have to screw things up. It's like the loyalty curve. You can go down and still have a loyal customer. They could be on the decline and they're still loyal. They still keep using you until you break that threshold. Make sense? So it's like a 9x factor early in the relationship, and it declines over time. All right. So you're right. You can have a negative experience that can kill the relationship. We don't want that. Let's avoid that. There's only two my point here is there's only two strategies. You can increase the number of experiences, you can try to skip steps, but the most powerful strategy is always, 100% of the time, in my opinion, to look at each experience and maximize the value that you provide. Maximize the feelings that you're able to create. And that's always the more sustainable, better strategy. And when you do that, you cause more trust to occur in a more sustainable way. And you do it through causing more caring to occur in influential ways. Okay? And I'm going to show you another model for that, for how to create trust faster. Now, it's the trust curve. Let's go back to this KPI thing. So what does it look like?
Hold on.
How do we measure that someone has confidence in us? I gave you guys a hint earlier. How do I define trust? On which confidence is placed? How will we know we have trust? What is the behavior we can deploy that will tell us that we have trust?
Invest in
One who invests in us, but not money. I already proved, don't use money. Use money to make sure you're efficient and make money and profitable and all that stuff, but don't use money for trust. Don't use money as your North Star set of metrics. What do you use? What are other investments? Time. That might be one. And every business is different and unique. And you got to figure out what your metrics look like. This is something I figured out early on in the software world. Like every product's different. Has different metrics for this.
Follow through.
Time.
The reputation online.
Time is a part of follow through.
Effort.
Effort. It's a function of time. Sort of. Time you can measure. Effort's a little harder to measure.
Sharing information.
Information is another good one. These are measurable. And again, we get to choose. And by the way, whatever you come up with for your business, it's going to be wrong. That's not the point. You guys got that? That's not the point to get it perfect. The point is to get it better, to constantly be improving it and to cause more empathy to occur in your ecosystems. More caring to occur, more influence to occur, because you're proving that you care about trust, because you've taken the time to objectively define it, measure it, and you're working on it. All right, time, information, what else?
What's
The last
the-
one. What's that?
Use you as a resource. Like, it's like, I have a question about something adjacent to your industry.
Yes. In my world, we call that the WUDIS. What's WUDIS stand for? Josh?
What?
Come on.
What you told us?
What you told us. The what you told us document. So we have an artifact. It's the first artifact that my engagement, my sales team gives to the customer after the first call, where we actually have collected the concerns. If they haven't shared those concerns with us, they don't trust us yet. And what we ask for is for them to respond to that. So I want to see an email that says, you gave them the WUDIS and they said, yep, those are accurate. You've collected my concerns accurately. The WUDIS. You guys don't have a WUDIS?
I've never seen it made as an acronym.
Yeah.
I thought it was Wizard of the United States.
That's what I call
Yeah.
it.
Woodis, got it
The
now.
WUDIS. The what you told us. We've been using it for years and years and years. All right, so time, information, and the last investment that they could make is one that I've been calling social capital. Meaning, they step out
They share, they review.
and say, hey, you know what? In order to get over this hump, you gotta also influence these people. Like, you know who the people are in your ecosystem you have to influence. This is what my world is. And you might have some other ideas here, but the key is an investment that you can measure. And again, you won't get it perfect.
How do you measure social capital?
Have they connected me with the financial buyer, the technical buyer, and the user buyer? I'm talking to one guy usually. I've got a coach inside. Have they connected me to these other people? Because I know in my world I'm not getting a sale until I've knocked all three of those relationships out. I've got what I need from all of them.
That's not advocacy? Or
No.
is it?
It's a form of advocacy at the higher level, but if I'm not over the trust threshold yet, then I don't have an opportunity to earn advocacy. At the higher level, it becomes advocacy. You get to define what this means for your business. Every business is different. You got to figure it out though. And the goal is move us all in this direction, in the long term, right?
But I guess your point is that this is where it starts. This is where
This is where it
advocacy
starts.
and advocacy
Yeah.
includes these things.
It absolutely does. Every advocate trusts you. That should be obvious. Every advocate's already loyal. If they have a problem to solve that you solve, they're coming to you because they're an advocate. So this is the starting point in any relationship. And you never stop doing the things that earn you trust. It doesn't go away. So all the things that you do in the trust formula, which I'll share with you in a minute, you never stop. You can't stop doing those things. You got to deliver value. You don't have a business. Information in our world, we know we're not trusted unless we have a budget, and we have the WUDIS. It's a starting point. This gives us the operating capital that we need to start working on loyalty and to start building a relationship. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a lead or even business from someone because I've gotten them over the trust threshold or even over the loyalty threshold, but they haven't spent money with us yet. They haven't spent money with us yet. In some cases, they've left the company that I've been trying to get into for years and went somewhere else, and we were the first call they made. Even though I'd never done business with them before, because I'm focused on this. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then time. Have they spent 3 hours in meetings with us? Whatever it is. Every business is different. You got to figure out, what are your metrics? What does your metric look like? So I want you to take a minute and brainstorm. What could you use? What are some investment behaviors you could measure? And so we can share them, talk about it a little bit. And they're not loyalty, so engagement over time. Like they buy from us again. Don't use buy. Don't use dollars. Use behavioral metrics. Way more powerful. Loyalty is re-engagement or engagement over time. Advocacy is stepping outside of themselves, investing in your future. Advocacy comes in the form of, let me be clear about this because it'll help you with your trust metric. Advocacy comes in the form of the following things. You know you have an advocate when? Give me some examples here. When? They give you ideas, unsolicited. They give you feedback. Here's something to know. I'm sorry, John, I'll get back to you. They give you feedback, positive and negative, powerful. They take the time out of their day to tell you what's going well and what's going wrong. That's because they care. Surveys suck. It's the most lazy form of leadership ever, in my opinion. There's a place for them. I'm not saying not to use them. I just think, in general, surveys are interruptive. They're point-in-time metrics, like Net Promoter Score, if any of you guys use that. Net Promoter Score is somewhat of a farce. There's a guy in our industry named Jared Spool that wrote a really cool dissection of Net Promoter Score, destroying the math and explaining how insufficient it is as a true metric of authentic advocacy. It's not. It's a point-in-time metric, it's manipulatable, and you see this, right? You see like the car dealer that's chasing you off the lot to tell you, hey, you're gonna get a survey in the mail, please, you know? It's like, it's experience destroying. There's no case in which you can deploy a survey unless you do it very personally or very powerfully, without taking people down the loyalty ladder. Unless they're an advocate. Because your advocates are more than willing to step in and fill out your surveys, which gives you one more compelling reason for having an advocacy program and understanding who your advocates are. Because those are the folks you want to go to first, the survey. They'll be beta customers for your next products and services that you want to test out. They will be a referral. They will be a reference for you. They'll be on your reference list. Just keep going. But these are behaviors you could measure that would indicate someone's an advocate. We've got a tool that we built at ITX called Momentum. Very creative. It's got all of the people that we deal with listed out and what stage they're at. Trust, loyalty, or advocacy, or below trust.
I was telling you guys about.
It's just for us. Can't buy it. But, anyway, so trust. So take a minute and come up with some metrics for investment. Again, time, information, social capital, or some other investment that they could make. Go. Harold, Evan. Yeah. All right. Anybody have some good ones? Jonathan, what'd you come up with?
Sharing with us their goals and their problems, asking for our strategic input, sharing current metrics and results, and sharing details of their current and past situation.
That's fantastic. So those are a whole bunch of informational metrics, which are it's very measurable.
And also time too, because
Yeah,
often
they
just
gotta-
take time.
They got to spend time to assemble like the metrics and stuff. Yeah, it's good. Good. What do you guys? You guys work together, right?
Yeah. Did like engaging with multiple media types. We've connected on LinkedIn already. So to the website, like having multiple touch points. Physically showing up in the office, or us physically showing up in their space, not just on the phone or video conference.
That's a loyalty metric, I think. I think you're.
That could be the higher up.
I think that's a higher level metric. Like they're actually engaging at that level, like face to face. I think that's powerful. That's a good one. But it's not a trust metric.
Right.
Because you're already over that. I'm assuming they're already a client.
No.
Not necessarily.
Oh.
Part of like
Like
our,
a new biz process.
like
Oh
our-
yeah, okay, that's good. So showing up for an in-person meeting, that's a good one. And they give you that time and that energy yeah, that's a good one. Super good. Did you have one?
Yeah, unsolicited reach out. So the conversation's gone, they're proactively reaching back
Yeah,
out, as
that's
opposed to
it.
us chasing them.
Yeah. So they're not doing business with you yet, but they're reaching out for more information. That's good. I think that's a passive metric. It's not something you have much control over, right? So I try to find metrics. I would recommend finding metrics that you can actually influence. Like you can't influence that one, other than, you can't directly influence that one. You can
Well,
only
you
indirectly
might
influence
look
it.
at like which sales reps are having the inbound contacts and then interrogating. Well,
Yeah, what are you
are they
doing?
doing that's producing?
Yeah, that's fabulous. See, but you see how this like causes more caring to occur and an increase in influence in your business just by thinking about how are we earning trust together. It's powerful. Cool. You got one? Nothing. All right. What's your business?
Home textiles.
Home textiles. What does that mean?
Bedding, bath, towels.
Okay. So sheets, Egyptian cotton,
Yes.
1,000 count, quick count. Okay, that's you.
Yes.
All right. So, do you sell direct to consumer or through?
Both.
Both. All right, so you have different personas. So
Absolutely.
for your distributors, how do you know they trust you? The ones that you're not doing business with, let's use that persona.
It's tough to say just for the fact that I don't want to come from the dollar point of view of repeat business, because I think that's a lazy metric too.
That's loyalty too. So the ones that aren't doing business with you yet, the prospects, and the distributor side, so B2B, how would you know they trust you? What types of investments could you measure that would indicate to your team, yeah, we've earned some trust from these guys?
I think it would be interest level and inquiring more about the product. How do they make it part of their assortment? Or how do they make it important to them?
All right, that's good. This is good. I think we're on the path to something. What are the pieces of information that you need to help make them super successful? How do they make their buying decisions? Like to buy sheets from you versus a competitor?
There's a number of metrics it has to do with delivery times,
right.
the brand awareness.
Do your let's go on that thread. Do your salespeople ask your distributors what their expected delivery times are? Since you know that's a concern of your customers.
I mean, that's always the end question, which is when
Why?
can I get?
Why is it the end question?
Meaning
Why
that's
not turn
all-
it into the beginning question?
Meaning that's the question is, are you interested? Yes. When can I get delivered? That's basically that dialogue.
Okay, so a piece of information that you could get after that could be a key trust metric. So you have this population of prospects out there, hundreds of them, yeah, that you're calling on, that aren't buying from you yet.
Correct.
How many of them do you know what their expected delivery times are?
They're really more waiting on you to provide information.
Okay,
Am I missing something?
a little bit. So
Yeah.
let me keep going on this. How many of those folks do you have enough of a relationship with that you know what their normal expected delivery times are? You know that's important to them. You said that. Delivery times are important to them. Do they have a threshold? Do they have an expectation? What is their current vendor doing? What are their expected delivery times? If that's a key thing that they care about, that's a button that you can push and pull on. So if you had an understanding of those 100 people, what percentage of them do you know what the expected delivery time was? That would be an indicator of trust. A small one, but a clear, objective indicator of how many of those 100 trust you. And if you got your salespeople after that metric, with the understanding that your intent is to measure trust, they'll know that data shows that they've earned a little bit of trust. And you will change the culture of your sales team to be thinking about what problems am I solving for my customer that will earn me more trust. You can come up with 5 metrics like that and put that into your KPI. You see where I'm going with that? You will build a more powerful sales team if you do that. Was that useful? Is anybody else struggling? Jillian or Jill?
There were,
You don't have one?
no, I think,
Now you guys are largely e-commerce, right? No?
40%.
40% of the business is e-commerce?
Most of the other business is driven through our website, just not placed online.
Okay. driven through the website, just not placed online, so they call in.
Yeah, bigger institutions send POs.
Bigger institutions. So what percentage of the big institutions in the world that you could do business with are you currently doing business with?
No idea.
Okay, well, that's a starting point.
Yeah.
Understanding what your market looks
Yeah.
like and having a metric around that. Because then your goal should become, those are your big institutional potentials for advocates. So if you don't even know who they are, it's going to be hard for you to build an advocacy strategy around them. But I believe you can make this business incredibly powerful if you had a good strategy around that. You could grow. Because they talk to each other.
But we can't say that this institution is using us. It's a very, I don't want to say secretive, but it's a cloistered sort of feeling, right?
That's
I ju-
changing though.
Even if they can't, it doesn't matter. You don't need referrals, but you need advocates. Because the advocates will help you build a better business. You don't need the referrals. You obviously have a successful business, but if you want to grow it, I'm going to argue having an advocacy strategy, even if you don't get the referrals out of them, will make you more powerful.
That's our main driver.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's always been our main driver.
cool. Anyone else?
One
You're in a
thing
tough
that-
spot right now, we know.
Yeah. One thing that I haven't heard is when we get a client that has us sign like an NDA right away
Mhm.
and get a COI or like fill out vendor forms, we kind of know that they're more serious than some of our other clients.
Cool, so that's a piece of information, like an NDA, getting that contract back, that's a valuable trust metric for you in the world, I like that.
Is it single
Good,
bid?
all right, sorry?
Oh, sorry, single bid, like as opposed to,
No, I think that's more of a loyalty, you're over the trust threshold. If they're not going out to bid, is that what you're saying?
I thought it was like indicators of.
That's an indication that you're beyond trust. I believe. That's a loyalty indicator. Like, they're not even looking at competitors. They're just single bidding.
But.
Or they're just dumb.
Or they're not.
You can have it together, we'll have a brand new client, opportunity come in, whether outcome or in. And sometimes we can maybe bypass an RFP process.
Awesome. I'm still gonna argue that that's because you did a really good job of jumping over trust to loyalty. Because they're not even looking outside. And you can do that. You can bypass trust. It's possible in some cases. Especially if you know who your advocates are and you have a way of, you've like learned how to communicate with the people that are advocates, you can learn how to jump over the trust, like get over trust really fast into advocacy. Make sense?
Yeah,
But you can't expect every customer to be like that.
absolutely not.
Only the ones that are over the loyalty threshold, because you're measuring it.
Or the
And that
trust.
might be a way of measuring it. You're over trust.
So loyalty doesn't indicate coming back to you.
Look, you all get to define every one of these words in any way you want to. This is just how I've done it.
No, it's fine, no,
No.
I want to understand.
Loyalty does not mean that they keep buying from you. It means that they're engaged with you. And that if they're, in my opinion, in your world, if they don't look at competitors when they have work that's in your field, they just call you, that's loyalty.
Okay, so like loyalty can be
It's engagement.
like situational.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking like
And it's
loyalty
different.
as climate, like.
Yeah, and then my point is it manifests differently in each of your businesses. It manifests differently, and you need to understand it, talk about it, communicate it, and improve it. And you won't get it right. You won't get it perfect. You'll always